Hello, everyone. Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn in MHA with the Jujutsu Gacha system, Part 6. If you enjoy this content, please smash the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it.
Dressed in my Sukuna getup, I lay on the ground of one of Kyoto's tall buildings with my arms crossed behind my head. Despite Kaina's advice of laying low, I couldn't help myself and decided to go out as Sukuna again. During this time, I decided I'd saved enough points to go on a lengthy gambling session while chewing on some okonomiyaki. Clink. You have pulled Reggie Star's hollow whisker basket. Rank: Gold. Not bad. What am I saying? That's completely useless here. Clink. You have pulled Satoru Gojo's fashion sensibilities. Rank: Silver. Why? Clink. You have pulled Kujisaki Nobura's cursed technique, Straw Doll. Rank: Gold. At the sight of Kujisaki's technique, I sat up from the cold ground and grinned. Finally, a technique. Jumping to my feet, I went through the knowledge of the technique and smiled. Now I can attack someone's soul directly using resonance for some extra unhealable damage. Very nice. Total SP, 12,649. I still have a lot of points left. Let's bet on our lucky stars and draw the 6 eyes. I reached out and used 3,500 SP and ended up with nothing. Crap. I punched my palm in frustration and cried over losing so many points. With a sad sigh, I decided to play it safe and used 1,500 SP for a diamond pull. Clink. You have pulled Aoi Todo's domain expansion. Symphony of unending applause. Rank: Diamond. Blinking, I felt the usual burst of information flood my brain. Hold on. Todo didn't have a domain back in JJK. Could that mean that this system can grant me the fully realized domain of every curse technique I have? Slipping off my mask, I failed to notice the wide, greedy smile growing on my face. Slowly, a low chuckle escaped my throat as I held my head. Incredible. Simply incredible. As I looked down at my mask, excitement welled within me as I envisioned myself as the strongest being on the planet, wielding a domain for every technique in my arsenal. Sukuna. The actual Sukuna would be rolling in his grave if he knew of my true potential. With enough time, I'd be a god amongst men. No. A god of curses. Before I could fall into delusions of godhood that would make Yagami Light blush, I slapped myself and calmed down. No matter how much power I could one day wield, I couldn't allow myself to get drunk on it. Otherwise, I would become exactly like Sukuna. Perhaps even worse. I can't allow that, no matter what. Falling on my ass, I looked over to my remaining points and sighed. Use 1,500 SP. Over the course of several minutes, my luck seemed to have run out due to me winning a lot of clothing and useless skills like Miwa's cooking skills, Todo's idol knowledge, Gakugunji's musical skills, and Nanami's knowledge of stocks. Then again, that last one might be useful. Towards the end, I was lucky to have won another technique with the last of my points. You have pulled Geto Seguru's cursed technique, Cursed Spirit Manipulation. Rank: Gold. In a world without cursed spirits? How useless. General Po. Walking through the dark city streets of Kyoto, a very tall, fox-like woman with a curvy figure looked around anxiously at her phone. The woman had shoulder-length blonde hair, with a single strand falling on the right side of her face. Her large blue eyes were framed by thick eyelashes, and she had pointed ears. In addition, her body was covered in green fur, while her underbelly was white and furry. Oh, dear. Am I getting close? The woman, Mayagawa Naomi, muttered as she looked down at her phone's GPS. Maybe I should just call someone. She said as she looked around the more solitary area of the city she now found herself in. The bustling, loud streets and busy sidewalks were now off in the distance. With a disappointed sigh, Naomi decided to head back and call her friends to let them know she would be late for their get-together. Me and my bad sense of direction, Naomi muttered, her blonde eyelashes fluttering as she headed back to the main streets. Hey! Hold the phone. Where are you going? Naomi jumped and turned to see three seedy individuals walk toward her. Blinking, the fox-like woman squeaked nervously as the approaching men whistled. Damn, dude. Look at her. She's like super freaking tall. And those boobs. They're huge. A man with the features of a toad said as a long, thick tail danced in the air. Hey, sweetheart. Come play with us. We'll show you a good time. Sorry. I have somewhere to be. Naomi said with fear as she tried to escape. Unfortunately, her fear held her back from running. Come on. Don't be like that. Me and my buddies will show you a night you'll never forget. Enough. Jumping down from a nearby fire escape, a man with pinkish-purple hair and green scaly skin wearing a blue mask landed between the men and Naomi. Standing to his full height, the man could be seen wearing thick ninja-like gear while a pair of katanas rested on his back alongside a long wooden staff. At his sides were a pair of nunchucks and sais. Go on. Flee. I shall handle this. Iguchi Shuichi, or as is now known, the masked Overwatcher, said as he drew his wooden staff. Now. Oh, okay. Naomi nodded and ran off, but not before looking back to see Shuichi's broad back. Who the hell are you supposed to be? One of the three men, a man with a quirk that allowed him to hover 3 centimeters above the ground, said with a glare, as his night of fun was now ruined. Me? Just a guy trying to do what's right. Shuichi said before dashing forward with his staff raised high. Tsukochi Naomasa released a heavy sigh as he leaned back on his rolling chair. Stray hairs could be seen on his chin and upper lip, while dark bags hung under his eyes from lack of sleep. Off the case. What the hell is going on? Naomasa muttered as he reached over to his coffee mug, only to find it empty. Giving up on his caffeinated beverage, the detective rubbed his tired eyes and looked over at all the strewn-out papers and documents on his desk. Or at least, the last remaining papers and documents he had over a case he's spent the past year building. Every piece of information that he and his team worked so hard to collect and uncover about the villain Sukuna had been taken by the HPSC. The new private enforcement team they hired would be in charge of the case from now on. An action that had enraged the detective and his hard-working team. When Naomasa had charged into the police chief's office for an explanation, Tsuragami Kenji could only offer him a disappointed look. I'm sorry, Tsukochi. It's out of our hands. Let's leave this to All Might and the private enforcement team, at least, for now. Seeing the chief's weathered and defeated expression, all the fight Naomasa had disappeared. With nothing more to do, the detective returned to his office, where a lone folder sat in his desk drawer. The HPSC and that new enforcement team hadn't taken everything from him. Naomasa was lucky enough to have taken some of his work home during the siege of their intel. While bare, the folder held just enough information that would allow him to continue his own off-the-books private investigation. He'd be damned if he didn't do everything in his power to help his friend, Toshinori Yagi, in taking down Sukuna. Shaking the sleep away, Naomasa looked around his private office, where several awards and accolades rested on his wall. There was even a framed picture of him and All Might sitting on his far-off bookshelf. After taking a deep, calming breath, the detective turned back to his work. It's not like the sudden surge of criminal activity wasn't enough due to Sukuna's actions. Now we have dozens of copycats and dozens of his so-called followers running around Japan. Was this his intention? Naomasa wondered as he read through several police reports from all over the country. The reports were on the arrests of several wannabe vigilantes and criminals wearing what seemed to be crudely made masks that Sukuna wore on the night of the Wakayama incident. The night in which the King of Curses seemingly took down several of Japan's pro-heroes with ease. After Sukuna's existence went public, it seemed that all the information he and his team had gathered was somehow leaked to the public. Naomasa didn't know whether this was due to a mole in their forces or if their systems were hacked. But what he did know was that the information of everything Sukuna had done was now out in the open. And that brought dangerous consequences. Said information started from Sukuna's vigilante acts of taking down criminals and inadvertently keeping the streets clear due to the criminals' villains' fear of him, which was a significant factor for a large portion of society calling him a hero without limits. The sheer idea of some calling Sukuna, a mass murderer, a hero was sickening to Naomasa. The situation worsened when people learned that Sukuna had single-handedly taken down one of Japan's most notorious crime lords, along with his extensive kidnapping and child trafficking operations. This only solidified Sukuna's status as a hero, someone who did whatever was necessary, regardless of the consequences. A lethal protector, some called him. This caused a meteoric rise of support and adoration for Sukuna through the internet and word of mouth. In the end, this caused several civilians to try to enact their own justice for those they deemed to be in the wrong. Unfortunately for them, they misjudged just how ruthless the real world was. Several vigilante wannabes ended up dead due to them overestimating their own strength. The lucky ones ended up arrested with minor injuries, while several others ended up in the hospital with grave injuries. When it came to the criminal underbelly, they somehow grew emboldened to act out more against the heroes. Before, heroes were an unstoppable force that could not be beaten, no matter what. But after the Wakayama incident, that mindset that kept those too scared to act was shattered. Now, villains and criminals attacked heroes without fear to show off their own strength and prove their dominance. Because if the King of Curses could take down a couple of heroes and become famous, why couldn't they? Thankfully, in complete contrast to the Sukuna supporters, there were still those who condemned him for his crimes. A large number of the people of Japan were now calling for his immediate arrest and for him to be brought to justice. Even several weeks after the Wakayama incident, to this day, the police were still constantly bombarded with questions and demands about when Sukuna would finally be stopped. It was reassuring to hear that society still held the rule of law above vigilantism. Madness. Pure madness. Naomasa said as he stood up, his stiff joints popping after being motionless for so long. If we don't take down Sukuna soon, the public will only fall deeper into madness. He needs to be stopped soon. No matter what. Walking over to his office's lone window, Naomasa stared out to the night sky with hope in his eyes. Hope that All Might would soon set everything back to the way it was. Back when things were peaceful and when the public didn't support a mass killer. Shuji Saito walked through the dark streets of his home city with dull eyes, his body seemingly on autopilot as he hobbled down the lonely sidewalk. Get out. Get out of my sight. I didn't raise some criminal. I can't believe you would have done such a thing. I have no son. Despite all the tears he spilled today, Saito's eyes began to grow humid yet again. With a choked sob, he numbly walked into a nearby alleyway and leaned against the cold brick wall to his right. No, that's not true. I'm not a criminal. Sliding to the ground, Saito sobbed as he hugged his backpack. A backpack full of money. Ah, before I forget, Gakia Soru muttered from inside his dingy little yellow car. Leaning back, the lawyer reached back and grabbed a rather large backpack. He then tossed it to a recently released Saito. This is a gift from him. Now then, good luck, young man. Let's hope we never have to meet again. Money. Is this his way of apologizing? Saito chuckled as he unzipped the backpack where bundles of yen sat within. What good is money when my life is ruined? With an angry roar, Saito threw the backpack down the alleyway, causing the pile of money to spill out. My parents look at me like I'm the scum of the earth. All my friends treat me like a monster. Money won't fix this. Ever since he was released from the juvenile detention center a week ago, Saito had been treated like the lowest of the low. Like the scum of the earth. A horrible criminal. Abandoned by everyone he knew and cared for because they believed he was a heinous criminal who attacked helpless girls just so he could satisfy himself. The sheer disgusted and disappointed expressions his friends and family gave him made Saito almost jump off the nearest rooftop available. But something deep inside him stopped him. What had stopped him from taking his life was Saito's deep, utter hatred for the man who ruined his life. Sukuna. Saito howled with his forehead pressed against the floor, his arm clutching his stomach tightly as if in horrible pain. I hate you. Is that so? Well, it seems we have that in common then, young man. Saito looked up sharply toward the sound of the voice. Standing over his thrown backpack, a man dressed in a suit and an odd black helmet held his hands behind his back. What is this feeling? This guy feels just like him. No. This is different. Who is this person? Saito thought as he stood to his feet numbly. I have a proposal for you, Shuji Saito. All for One said as he approached Saito calmly. A large grin stretched over his scarred face from under his helmet. One that I think will benefit the both of us quite nicely. Reaching out, All for One held out a hand towards Saito. Come, Saito. Let me help you destroy the man known as Sukyuna, the King of Curses. 2 months later. You have pulled Mahito's curse technique, Idol Transfiguration. Rank, Platinum. Finally, Idol Transfiguration allows the user to manipulate and reshape the shape of their soul or of anyone they physically touch. The shape of the body is dependent on the shape of the soul, so if the soul is distorted, so too is the body. Therefore, someone using Idol Transfiguration can disfigure their target's body into something grotesque by warping their soul's shape with just a touch. This meant that if you could touch your opponent even once, victory was yours. The user can also manipulate their own soul to return their body to its original state after receiving heavy damage, ultimately making any and all physical damage done to a user of Idol Transfiguration completely useless. It was an incredibly powerful technique. I grinned as I absorbed the knowledge of how to use the last of the 4 disaster curse techniques. Using my binding vow, I quickly switched one of my techniques for Idol Transfiguration. Raising my hand, I inspected the raw, almost primal energy radiating from within me. So this is what a soul is, I muttered as I turned to the wall to my right. Floating beyond the walls of my home, I saw the floating souls of Jin, Kaina, Himiko, and Eri. Could Mahito always see souls through walls? Or could this be thanks to Toji's advanced perception boosting my senses and Idol Transfiguration letting me see souls through solid surfaces? Either way, it'll almost be impossible for anyone to sneak up on me from behind the cover now. From what I could see, each soul was distinct from each other, like a DNA strand. However, it was unlike how Mahito was used to perceiving a soul. I quickly noticed just how different the souls from this universe were from those from JJK. They were larger and more complex. Could this be due to their quirks? Standing up, I walked into my bathroom and stared at my face from my reflection. With ease, I changed the shape of my soul and watched as my appearance changed to look like Mahito. I traced over the patchwork over my face and brushed my long, light blue hair. I then changed my appearance again and made myself look like Teen Gojo Satoru. Even though I looked exactly like him, my blue eyes failed to match his own due to the lack of the 6 eyes. Okay, this is weird. I sighed and reverted back to my original appearance. Once my face was staring back at me, I felt an epiphany hit me. Thanks to Idol Transfiguration, I was now essentially immortal. The reason for this revelation was due to remembering how Mahito reverted his body into that of a child during his fight with Nanami and Yuji. I was now capable of adjusting my soul to any age I wanted. I could turn back the clock and turn myself into a child or speed things up so I would be well into my late 30s. I could also stop aging anytime I wanted as well. Although I possessed a form of immortality, I could still technically be killed. However, thanks to Idol Transfiguration, the only way that could happen would be if someone were able to see or be aware of my soul and attack it. Unless there was a soul perception quirk or something similar in this world, I doubted I would need to worry about being killed by anything. Wait, I think I could be killed if my entire being was somehow erased in one swift move without leaving any trace of me behind. This power is dangerous, I muttered as the gravity of the situation weighed over me. This line of thinking never bothered Mahito due to his cursed status. But for a human like me, this is too much. Was I even still human at this point? Enough with this existential crisis line of thinking. I splashed my face with some cold water and left my room. Walking through the halls, I stopped by Jin's room and peeked inside. The man was wearing a black mask and had large white eyes. Over his head was a gaming headset while he tapped away at his keyboard and mouse. In front of him was a monitor with one of this generation's most popular battle royale games. Ha! Stay mad, Noobmaster69. Maybe next time you'll think twice about taking me on. Jin said into the microphone in front of him while looking into the camera above his monitor. Thanks for the donations. Chat. Now let's see who's going to be my next victim. Due to his impressive gaming skills and hilarious personality, I suggested that Jin become a streamer. While the man was a bit apprehensive at the prospect, he quickly agreed to give it a try after I told him how much some of the top streamers made a year. And so, After several months of streaming, Jin was able to garner a rather impressive number of followers and fans. So much so that he was able to land among the top 10 most popular streamers on the internet, earning a rather impressive sum of money. Closing the door, I moved on and headed off in the direction of where Eri was. Entering the living room, I found the young girl strumming a small wooden guitar with a small smile. Off in the kitchen, Kaina was chopping some vegetables as she hummed to herself. "Hey there, Eri." Patting her head, I sat beside her, causing Eri to turn to me with a large smile. "Oh Nia-chan. Look. I think I finally got it." I smiled as she began to slowly play the notes for a melody I showed her a while back. After the night I sang to her to help her sleep, Eri quickly grew to love all things music. Both Jin and I took it upon ourselves to spoil her and get anything she wanted from the music store. However, the guitar she had in her hands was one I made using my construction technique. "That's very good, Eri. You're getting better." Smiling, I picked her up and placed her on my lap. As she continued strumming her guitar, I began brushing her hair back rhythmically. Plus 25 SP. Closing my eyes, I zeroed in on her soul and inspected it closely. I was right. A person's quirk does have a big effect on their soul. I wouldn't know if changing or manipulating one's soul from this world would be any different from how Mojito did so until I tried it. But that was something I'd have to do later on someone I didn't mind experimenting on. There was no way in hell I'd do that to Eri. But what I could do safely was heal her body and remove the memories of her past. Now then, let's get rid of those scars for you, Eri. Strewn all around me, 5 men and 3 women lay unconscious and blooded. Their broken bodies and weapons sat unmoving as I kneeled next to a man with an armadillo-like shell on his back. These 7 had thought it would be a good idea to have robbed and beaten down a group of high school kids who were having some fun late at night. Unfortunately, they didn't seem to have as much fun when I was the one beating them senseless. Now, they all lie quietly on the wet, dirty ground behind an old abandoned bakery. The group of kids they had attacked was long gone once I made my appearance. TCH. Looks like I can't take away your quirk without killing you. I continued to hold my hand against the armadillo man's chest and then shifted my focus. HM? What's this? Even though I had all of Mojito's knowledge and techniques in using idol transfiguration, I still had to figure out how my technique would work with the souls of this world. This meant doing the things Mojito once did with ease. I would have to relearn due to how integral one's quirk was to their soul. No way. I opened my eyes in surprise as I watched the man's armadillo-like features slowly begin to recede. However, the changes eventually stopped until the man's once pronounced mutations became extremely minor. It was as if he were a new person. Curious, I flipped the effects and watched as his body shifted until he was practically a large man-sized armadillo. I can't get rid of one's quirk, but I can amplify or diminish its potency, I muttered with a large grin. How extraordinary. Standing up, I turned to one of the men who spoke about grabbing one of the high school kids to use for later. When I arrived, the man before me, who had suntanned skin and light brown hair, had been groping a girl with long, vibrant pink hair that he was using to keep her in place. For a split second, that girl morphed into in my mind. Reaching down, I placed my hand over his face for a few seconds and stepped back. With little care, I watched with wonder as he immediately woke up and began to scream before his body exploded in a shower of gore. How many years has it been? How many years had I been cleaning these streets and paving my way through this country? Still, nothing ever changes. Men like this stain on the ground continue their actions despite knowing that what they're doing is wrong. How many more do I have to kill before these people learn? Damn monkeys. 1 week later, I scanned the Takoba Municipal Beach Park with a bored look. Piles and piles of trash lined what was once a beautiful beach with bundles of appliances, furniture, and bags of junk. What a dump. However, off to the side, a large section of the beach was clear of trash and any other debris. Down at the beach was none other than Izuku with a fridge on his back. From behind him, a thin man with blonde hair was cheering Izuku on. Focusing, I inspected the number 1 hero's soul. All Might's soul is so bright. No doubt the effect of having one for all. Let's see. There they are. Deep within Yagi's burning soul, I was able to spot 7 much smaller, almost imperceptible souls hiding deep within. The past users. I haven't seen him in a few years. So that's his weakened state, I muttered and took a sip of my morning coffee as I turned off my advanced soul perception. Still, the original reason All Might had Izuku clean this beach was to help build his body. But Izuku's body is already as strong as it can be for his age. So why? From my spot on the beach's boardwalk, I watched as Izuku continued picking up trash from the beach toward a far-off truck. As he did so, All Might, or Toshinori Yagi, turned to me as he finally noticed my presence. Seeing that I was caught, I began making my way down to the beach, gaining Izuku's attention. Sauta-san. Izuku squeaked out, and his arms flailed around. His head looked back and forth between Yagi and me. What are you doing here? Plus 55 SP, you've been ditching our training sessions more and more, Izuku. Keiko and Hitoshi are worried about you. You know? So I took it upon myself to see what's taken up so much of your attention. I came to a stop in front of Yagi and gave the man a slight bow. Where are my manners? I'm Shimizu Sauta, a friend of Izuku. It's nice to meet you. Man, it's a weird experience talking to a walking, coughing pile of bones that can quickly transform into a pillar of muscle that can punch a hole in the atmosphere. Plus 35 SP, Shimizu Shonin. Yagi said under his breath before he tried to hide it with a cough. I mean, it's nice to meet you, young man. I'm Toshinori Yagi. I'm sorry, but I'm the reason why my Doria Shonin has been so preoccupied. You see, I work for a large hero agency, and I've discovered my Doria Shonin's great potential. I offered to help guide him on his journey to becoming a great hero one day. So that's the excuse you're using. Fine, I'll play along. Still, let's push some buttons. I see. How generous of you. I smiled at the man and looked over to a slightly nervous Izuku. Still, if you decided to take him on, then you must be aware of his quirkless status. Am I right? There aren't many people who would help someone without a meta ability. Tell me, Toshinori-san, how are you planning on helping him with that? Plus 65 SP, seeing Yagi's eyebrow twitch, it seemed that I had found the correct button to push. Well. Sauta-san. Seeing his mentor trip over what to say, Izuku dashed in front of me and waved his hands in front of my face to distract me. Why, you see. Toshinori-sensei here is actually helping me to understand all the ins and outs of the hero industry and all that. Yeah. By picking up trash. I looked around at the dump-filled beach with raised eyebrows. Plus 50 SP. Plus 45 SP. Exactly, Shimizu Shonin. Being a hero isn't just about defeating villains and making flashy moves. It's also about lending a helping hand to the community. Yagi said loudly as he motioned to the junk on the beach and to the large, clean section off to the side. An important fact many in the industry don't seem to remember as they focus on rising through the ranks and looking cool. That's what I'm teaching my Doria Shonin. Individually, they can't lie to save themselves. But together, they can make a sorta believable excuse. I guess that checks out. I nodded and turned over to an old microwave leaning on its side. Walking over to it, I hoisted it over my shoulder and picked up an old tire as well. With them in hand, I began heading to the truck where Izuku had been pacing all his picked up trash. Sauta-san, what are you doing? Me? Helping. I said, looking over to him. It takes more than one person to help the community, after all. Or would you rather do this on your own? Plus 35 SP. Plus 40 SP. But what about the sport festival? Izuku questioned as he picked up some more trash. Off in the back, Yagi's eyes grew wide at the implication. It's in 2 weeks. Shouldn't you be getting ready? Shimizu Shonin, are you perhaps a student of UA? Yagi asked as he followed behind us as we placed our collected trash in the truck bed. Oh yeah. I'm in Gen Ed. So nothing too exciting. I said as Izuku and I moved on to a large rusty dryer. As one, we lifted the old appliance and began carrying it to the truck. Plus, I'm quirkless, so I couldn't make it into the hero course even if I wanted to. Not that I do. Plus 75 SP. Quirkless. Yagi muttered as Izuku and I dumped the machine on the bed. Just like my Doria Shonin. Izuku nodded. Yeah. Sauta-san was the person I told you about, Toshinori-sensei. He's the one who taught me martial arts and helped me get stronger. So that was you. Plus 60 SP. Yup. I don't care much for heroes, but Izuku here really looks up to them. So I decided to help him out. Besides, I'm not subscribed to the mindset that someone needs a quirk to become a hero. I believe that with enough hard work, will, and determination, anyone can be a hero. I said before turning to Yagi, my black eyes staring deep into his own glowing blues. What do you think, Toshinori-san? At my words, Yagi nodded with a smile. Behind his eyes, a small pang of regret and shame pulsed through. Couldn't have said it better myself, my boy. General POV, W, what do you think you're doing? An older man with 3 arms said in fear as he watched his convenience store be ransacked by 4 men wearing masks with 4 eyes. Stop this immediately. Shut the hell up, old-timer. With a swing of his bat, one of the mask-wearing men yelled at the cowering store owner as he smashed through one of the glass doors within the store. Unless you want me to bash my bat into that thick skull of yours, I suggest you shut up. With another swing, the man smashed several glass bottles from the store's drink aisle. Don't you know who we are, you old geezer? Stepping up to the counter, a grey-skinned man with a mask peered down at the old store owner with an air of superiority. We're Sukuna's men. Now, if you don't want the King of Curses to come kill you, I suggest you sit back and relax as we do our thing. Sukuna. The old man gasped in fear as his legs shuffled back until he hit the wall behind his counter. Good. Looks like you know the boss. Now be a good old man and hand me all the money in your register. I have no men. The loud crashes and smashes in the background all stopped as an oppressive pressure filled the air within the store. Slowly, the grey-skinned man turned his head to see Sukuna standing in front of the store's main doors. Shit. It's him. It's really him. One of the men who were destroying the store whispered as he and his 2 other companions walked up slowly to the trembling grey-skinned man. Sukuna made no comment as he looked around the ruined store before focusing on his 4 so-called men. You 4 hold your heads quite high within my presence. Before the store owner's very eyes, all the men who were destroying his store were quickly beaten to the ground effortlessly and mercilessly by the King of Curses. Throughout the beatdown, the men's masks were all quickly shattered. Once they were all broken and unconscious, Sukuna threw them all out unceremoniously into the dark, dingy streets. The store owner could do nothing but remain in his kneeling position as Sukuna turned to him. These pieces of trash don't work under me, Sukuna uttered with his hands in his pockets. Due to their crimes against you, I'll hold their fates in your hands. Confused, the old store owner looked up at Sukuna. What? Choose. These men can either all die or lose their arms. Sukuna said as he walked out of the store and stood at the center of all 4 men. You have 5 seconds. The store owner stood in shock at Sukuna's offer, thanks to his old age. The man knew that the King of Curses was dead serious. Still, even if he knew that the store owner couldn't possibly be responsible for the lives of these 4 criminals, even if they did destroy his store. Even so, if he had to decide, the store owner would choose the option in which all 4 men continued living. Their arms. Very well. In the blink of an eye, each of the men's arms was sliced off from the elbow down by an invisible force that caused blood to splatter and burst from their limbs. It was only thanks to their unconscious states that the men weren't screaming in agony. Seeing such a brutal and violent display, the old man cried in horror and quickly threw up. Their debts are now paid, Sukuna said before vanishing into the dark skies above. Falling to his knees, the old store owner looked around at the mangled bodies of all 4 men before tears fell over his cheeks. Oh God. Quickly, the old store owner fetched some rope from his store and began to apply tourniquets around each of the men's arms to help stop the blood loss until the paramedics he called arrived. Shimizu Sautapu. Ever since the beatdown I gave to the heroes over 2 months ago, I saw a surge of people, both criminals and your average Joe, calling themselves my followers. These people even went so far as to wear masks similar to my own or horribly drawn tattoos in a way to show off that they were part of my so-called crew. Using my name, these bozos decided to act tough against their rivals and used the opportunity to terrorize the streets. After a month, the police and the heroes were able to bring most of these wannabes down while arresting the worst offenders. Seeing that there were indeed consequences for their actions, the weaker-willed of my followers all stopped their petty actions and put down the mask. However, those who managed to evade being arrested continued with their actions and began to grow bolder as well. These people went so far as to assault innocent civilians and cause heavy property damage using their quirks or weapons. Unfortunately for these people, I didn't appreciate them using my name to justify their acts. To stop them, for the past 2 weeks, I began making examples out of them all. Geez, and I thought I was a cruel bastard. From behind me, a black-haired young man covered in stapled purple skin walked out of the darkness of the alleyway with a slight grin. Todoroki Toya. Darby. Sukuna. You're a tough man to find. Darby said as he stopped a reasonable distance away from me, his stance loose but ready. You can't imagine how many of your followers I've run into by mistake. But by the way you handled those 4 losers back there, I doubt you care that I burnt them to ash when I found out they weren't actually your men. The name's Darby, by the way. What do you want? I said briskly, my voice low. I then flooded my CE through the alleyway, causing Darby to stiffen due to the new pressure on him. Plus 35 SP, straight to the point. Fine. Darby nodded before holding out a hand. In a burst of heat, blue flames came to life. You see, I want to take out Endeavor. No. I want to burn down everything he's ever built to the ground until there's nothing left. I saw what you did to him in Wakayama. Despite my current power, I know I don't stand a chance of taking the number 2 hero down on my own. But you did it as if it was nothing. Well, technically, the Nomu did most of the work. With a wide, sinister grin, Darby stepped forward despite the knowledge that I could end him on the spot. I have a deal for you, Sukuna. I'll offer you my life and strength if you'll help me destroy Endeavor and his legacy. My flames will be yours to command if you can help me accomplish my goal. Finally, I turned around and gave him my full attention. Seeing that my focus was now entirely on him, Darby grinned widely. From the way his eyes twitched, he was expecting me to attack him. This was a gamble on his part. I stayed still and silent as the tension in the air became palpable, causing sweat to bead on Davies' forehead. It makes sense that he would approach me. I had seemingly defeated Endeavor for everyone to see. In his eyes, I represent the key to his ambitions. With the League of Villains not yet in the picture, I'm the most obvious ally he could have. Unlike Himiko and Jin, Darby is a walking grenade. His failing body and mind are focused solely on destroying Endeavor. Whether or not he succeeded in the original timeline, I'll never know. Still, despite his madness, I couldn't help but feel pity for Darby. Or should I say, Todoroki Toya? His entire life had been filled with sadness, starting from his childhood and extending to the Paranormal Liberation War, where he revealed his true identity to the world. He struggled with deep mental issues. Then again, I was surrounded by people who also faced their own mental challenges. Wait, do I have mental problems? Nah. You want to destroy Endeavor. I turned to Darby, my body relaxed and loose, contrasting his tight and jittery body language. What a lofty ambition. Tell me, what use do I have for your strength? At my comment, Darby frowned and cancelled his flames. Despite how powerful you are, eventually, those heroes will gather their numbers to the point where even you won't stand a chance. Add on the fact that All Might finds you as well. I doubt that even you could stand a chance against the number 1 hero Slice. Plus 55 SP, Darby's eyes grew wide as the walls at his side split apart, leaving behind deep gouges that began to crack and tremble before calming. Slowly, he turned back to see that the slashes reached all the way across the length of the alleyway. Turning back to me, Davies' eyes widened when he saw me standing within an arm's length away with a finger pointed directly at his head. Easy there, Darby. While I don't plan on killing you, I still have to play the role of Sukuna. Are you saying I'd lose to that man? I uttered lowly. I suggest you consider your next words carefully. Plus 30 SP. Despite his perilous position, Darby's heart was calm. Right. Despite his arrogance, Darby didn't intend to piss me off and get himself killed before his goals were realized. Sorry about that. Still, my point stands. Eventually, you're going to need strong allies. You're saying you're strong. Despite how I look, my flames are as strong as they come. If it weren't for Endeavor, I'd be the strongest fire user in all of Japan. Darby grinned and motioned to himself. The way I see it, having me on your side can only benefit you. Besides, for someone like you, helping me take down Endeavor should be a cakewalk. Barely an inconvenience. He's buttering me up. If I were an egotistical prick, that would probably work. Now then, what to do? Very well. Let's find out how strong your flames truly are. Dropping my arm, I began walking away from him with my hands in my pockets. If you're capable of lasting more than 5 minutes against me, I'll allow you to work under me. Plus 25 SP, 5 minutes. Grinning madly, Darby raised an arm covered in blue flames. That's it? I hope you're not underestimating me, Sukuna. Otherwise, you'll end up burned. We'll see about that. Now follow me. Fighting here will only grab unwanted attention. Heh. You got it, boss. Don't get ahead of yourself. This place will do. I looked around at the vast and desolate terrain from below the mountains. Off in the distance, a broad line of trees stood away from what would most likely be a hail of fire. Standing far away from me was Darby. He was looking around the location I had brought him to with careful consideration. Despite his goal of joining my ranks, he was still cautious of me and wondered if I had lured him into a trap. Not bad. Far enough that we won't garner any unwanted attention and desolate to the point where I won't be able to burn this whole forest down. Darby had a crooked smile as he rubbed the back of his neck. Now that we're here, let's get this show on the road. Raising his arms beside him, Darby ignited his hands with blue flames. I hope you don't regret giving me only 5 minutes. I'll have you know, I'm a pretty tough bastard. We'll see about that, I said without taking my hands out of my pockets, a fact that caused a frown to grow on Darby's scarred face. Plus 15 SP. Without another word, Darby swung his right arm forward and launched a massive wave of flames towards me. As they grew closer, I couldn't help but be impressed at the level of heat his flames produced. With this treasure, I summon. Over my head, a small Dharma wheel materialized. Darby's flames can reach temperatures as high as 2000 degrees Celsius, significantly exceeding the heat of molten lava and the heat generated by disaster flames. In comparison, my divine arrow can achieve temperatures of 5000 to 5400 degrees Celsius. However, these extreme temperatures are too intense for Mahoraga to adapt safely without risking his destruction. This means I now have the perfect opportunity to have the divine general adapt to what was quite possibly this world's hottest source of fire. Raising my right hand, I released a dismantle slash that split the wave of fire in two without alerting Darby, causing the now parallel waves of flames to pass off on my sides. Reaching out, I stuck my arms into the fire and felt a wave of pain as my arms were immediately charred. Clang. That's one, I muttered as I reverted the shape of my soul to its original state, effectively healing me back to 100%. How odd, I can still be hurt despite his flames not being able to strike my soul. Could it be due to me not being a curse like Mahito? Hearing no screams or seeing no movement, Darby stopped his attack and looked over the charred and smoking ground where I once stood with a guarded expression. Jumping to the side, he released a ball of fire to his right, where I had suddenly appeared. I batted the flames aside with a wave of slashes. Rushing in, I slammed an open palm into his chest that sent him sliding back. Gritting his teeth, Darby exploded upwards with a burst of flames beneath his feet. With a roar, the firstborn Todoroki launched a massive explosion of azure flames at me like a raining tsunami. Despite the overwhelming heat, I remained in place and raised my arms in front of me. Quickly, I reinforced myself with a thin layer of CE that helped me endure the flames just enough so I wouldn't burn to death. Crap. That's hot. Clang. That's two. Swiping my arms, I split the fire apart and used the opening to leap high into the air. Darby watched me jump out of his flames path with wide eyes as he watched my charred and burnt flesh quickly disappear, only to be replaced with perfectly intact skin. Still, My clothes had barely held on due to the intense heat. I was left with tattered and charred pants while my whole upper body was laid bare. My mask remained in place thanks to Kaisen's use of some extremely tough materials in its construction. Plus, if it did break, I had 5 more backup masks within Zyko. Off a safe distance away, Zyko was watching the ongoing battle from atop a tree branch with a pair of sunglasses over his eyes. With a swipe of my arm, I sent 2 slash attacks into Darby's chest. Being mindful not to kill him, I had held back in the dismantle's power, leaving only shallow but still painful wounds on his scarred chest. Plus 35 SP, you can heal yourself, Darby said in shock before he quickly landed on the ground. Due to his flame's powerful heat, his lower half was smoking and burned, leaving him without shoes and ruined pants. Pulling back, he focused a bright ball of flames over his left hand. That means I can really let loose. Just as I landed on the ground, I had to move left and right to avoid a volley of incoming fireballs that scorched the ground. With great speed, I closed the distance between Darby and me and landed several quick punches onto his face. Due to his mighty quirk, Darby never needed to work on his hand-to-hand skills. After all, what would be the point of that, considering that anyone who got even remotely close to him would instantly be burnt to ash? Whoever thought of attacking Darby head-on would need to be a suicidal fool or completely insane. Hot, hot, hot. Despite the roaring of the flames around me, I continued raining punch after punch into Darby's body. He grunted and growled as he tried to blast me away with his flames, but all his attacks met nothing but air as I effortlessly danced and moved around him. Stay still, Darby roared, his body beginning to steam while a putrid smell of burnt flesh filled the air. In an act of irritation and anger, Darby shrank into himself and screamed as he unleashed a wave of flames all around him. Due to my close proximity, I could do nothing but raise my guard up as the wave of roaring flames crashed into me, launching me back across the ruined and charred battleground. Clang. Finally. I looked over at Darby's panting form as my burnt body quickly reformed itself. I'd like to thank you, Darby. With this, the General is now completely adapted to your flames. General? Adapted? What are you going on about? Darby asked with a glare. Grinning, the Dharma wheel disappeared from over my head and sank into my shadow. From behind me, Mahoraga rose into existence. With a low growl, the Divine General moved in front of me and stood still. How about this? I'll stand completely still and I'll let you use your strongest attack on me. If I'm even so much as singed, I'll work under you. I held my arms beside me and stared at Darby's panting form, who was looking at me suspiciously. Well, what do you say? Plus 35 SP. Is this some sort of trick? No. No trick. Just give it all you've got. 1 burn is all you need to win, I said confidently and made a come-on motion. Let's see what you've got. Seeing that I was completely serious, Darby grinned madly and held his arms beside him. In a flash, powerful blue flames roared to life around him. You better not die then. Here it comes. Flash fire fist. Darby yelled as the world around us glowed a brilliant blue. Prominence burn. Like an unstoppable force of nature, a massive explosion of fire rocketed toward me like a tidal wave of death. Unbothered by the coming calamity, I slipped my hands into my pockets as Mahoraga raised his arms. Whoosh! Fire met Shikigami as the Divine General stood as an unmovable shield between me and the massive wall of flames. Like a rock sitting within a stream, the flames passed around Mahoraga and me and slammed themselves into the mountain to my back. Their intense heat quickly caused the mountain's surface to heat up until it began to glow a bright crimson. Quickly, the rocks began to melt before they combusted. Clang! At the sound of Mahoraga's wheel spinning, I watched with curiosity as his body began to grow black ice all over. Quickly, a chilly black armor made of pure ice began to push Darby's flames back as steam rippled all around him. Seeing this, I promptly commanded Mahoraga to stop his counterattack. With a low growl, Mahoraga nodded and continued deflecting the attack. After what felt like an eternity, the roaring blue flames began to die until they completely stopped. All around me were scattered blue flames that continued burning away. Pillars of smoke billowed all around as the very earth below me was pitch black and reflective. Obsidian, I muttered as the black crystal released waves of smoke and steam. Looking over to where Darby was, I saw him kneeling on the ground with one of his arms wholly charred black while his right leg was practically just bones. Half of his head was skinless, while his remaining left eye stared at me in complete shock. Plus 65 SP, that's impossible, Darby said in a hoarse voice. You're not even singed. Walking toward him, I whistled at his body's state. I didn't think you'd push yourself so far. How are you going to destroy Endeavor looking like that? With a low chuckle, Darby looked at his charred body with little emotion. Don't worry, I'll find a way. I've survived worse. His lone blue eye widened before a grin grew on his face. It's been 6 minutes and 35 seconds. Looks like I made it. It seems you're right. Kneeling in front of his steaming body, I laid a hand on his chest. If you're going to work for me, then I can't have you in that condition. Let's take a look at your soul, Darby. What is this? Fire. Fire and destruction floated all around me within this expansive and chaotic space that was Darby's soul. Off in the distance was a large floating Japanese house. Its surroundings were lit up with orange flames, and an enormous looming shadow in the shape of Todoroki Enji peered down with disappointed white glowing eyes. Is this Darby's soul? No, Toya's soul. I asked as I looked down at my glowing body. I had no clothes, and the only thing I could make out was the shape of my glowing form. Touching my face, I felt my mouth, nose, and eyes while my now white hair floated within this infinite space. How weird. This hasn't happened before. Is it because Toya has a strong soul, or is this due to how souls work in this universe with the added power from quirks? Holding my chin, I frowned as I realized that I may not be able to one-shot all for one if this was the case. That potato head of a man has been alive for at least 100 years or so, and who knows how many quirks have been collected within him. And if my theory that the strength of one's quirk boosts the size and potential of one's soul is correct, then I may have more trouble killing him using idle transfiguration. Shrugging, I decided to think about that later and flew in the direction of the floating Todoroki household. Entering through the burnt-down front door, I looked inside the dark hallways with a frown. Stepping inside what appeared to be the family room. The room within was lit up with light, and the surroundings appeared normal. Ambling inside, I turned to see Toya and Fuyumi watching television. However, they were both around 5 or 8 years old. Upon entering, the two seemingly missed my form. Hey, Fuyumi. Why don't you think Dad will let me do quirk training anymore? So I got some dumb burns. Big deal. I'm more than tough enough to take that. I know my body better than anyone, and I say I'm totally fine. Toya said as he looked down at his hand, his body covered in bandages. Beside him, Fuyumi looked confused as she ate her bag of chips. Are these memories? I muttered before Toya grew annoyed that Fuyumi didn't agree with him. The young girl had expressed her worry over his safety, which didn't sit well with him. Sliding off the couch, Toya left the room, which caused the space around me to distort and become dark and oppressive. Stepping out of the room, I came upon a dark, snowy forest with flames scattered on the ground and over the crudely made training dummies. Standing in the corner was Toya. Over his left hand were streams of flames as a desperate expression sat on his face. Dad, I can surpass All Might. too. Look. I can use such strong flames now. I can surpass All Might. So, look at me. Toya said as tears fell out of his sad eyes. With a frown, I watched my environment distort again as the Todoroki household built itself around me. Turning around, I saw Enji kneeling in front of an injured and burned Toya with an exasperated expression. Damn it! When will you get this through your head? Enji shouted as his hands grabbed onto Toya's shoulders. The man's face was both worried and angry. Have you learned nothing from getting burnt over and over again? Listen, Toya. Find a new dream to pursue. Go play with Fuyumi and Natsuo. Make friends at school and do stuff with them. There are plenty of things to do with your life besides being a hero. Leave this unattainable goal behind you. Walking up to them, I turned to my left and saw Rei holding an infant Shoto while Fuyumi and Natsuo were by her side. The woman's face was pained and worried as she watched Enji try to convince Toya out of being a hero. But the kids at school said they're going to be pros one day. They don't get what it's like for me, Toya said as tears and snot fell down his desperate, smiling face. But you do. You showed me that being the best is what matters. As Toya spoke, embers and smoke began to burn over his head as his emotions grew beyond his control. Reaching out, Rei's hand began to emit a chill as she worried about her son. Toya, stop. You have to cool down. You pushed me to want this. Dad. It's too late now. I can't unlearn what you taught me. Keep watching. You'll see. Toya muttered as flames exploded out of his head. Look at me, Endeavor. The boy roared as he pushed past his father with flames over his left hand. With a roar, Toya charged at Rei. Or, more specifically, the infant Shoto. From there, hundreds of Toya's memories sped around me, each of which showed off more of his childhood. From when he rarely played with Fuyumi and Natsu, to when he watched his father train and focus on Shoto, even to where Toya ignored his classmates in order to focus on how to grow stronger. How long have I been here? It feels like it's been weeks, months, or even years. Or has it been a few seconds? Darby, no, Toya. So all this is why you are the way you are. I closed my eyes and watched a teenage Toya training on Sekoto Peak. His flames were beginning to scar his body while they began to attain a blue hue. In his excitement, Toya had asked his father to come to the mountain to show off the results of his training. This caused Enji to grow into a fit of rage. The man slapped Rei while yelling at her about why she didn't stop Toya from using his quirk as he commanded her to do. In an act of bravery, a young Shoto tried to stop his father by yelling and standing between him and his mom. Off in a corner, Fuyumi and Natsuo sat next to one another with tears streaming down their faces. With a broken expression, Rei looked up to a monstrous Enji. I tried my best. He wouldn't listen. In anger, Enji glared at her. Here's your problem now. You deal with this. Be of use for once. Reaching out, Enji grabbed Rei's shirt and raised his hand. Turning my head, I saw Toya leaning against the outside wall in the hallway as he listened in. Closing my eyes, I heard another slap and cries echo before everything around me distorted again. When I opened my eyes, I was back on Sekoto Peak, where a downcast Toya sat on a log. Due to his unstable emotions, Toya's body suddenly combusts on fire as he lost control over his quirk. Gah! Toya's screams flooded the space around me as his orange flames exploded into a brilliant blue. Quickly, his fire spread all over the mountain until his charred body sat within a nearby body of water, where he tried to put his flames out. You've been through a lot, haven't you, Toya? I said as I walked up to the charred remains of Toya. Kneeling next to the dying boy, I placed my glowing hand over his head and activated idol transfiguration. So much so that your soul was shaped by it. Molded by your dreams of pleasing your father. In the end, your sadness and anger gave birth to Darby. It's only thanks to that very anger that you're still alive. Dad. Toya croaked out as his charred hand reached out to my own. Did I make you proud? Sorry, Toya. I'm not your dad. I smiled as his body quickly repaired itself, thanks to my curse technique. Quickly, his body reverted back to its original healthy state. But I think it's time you stop trying to please him. I don't think I can, Toya muttered as he looked down at his hands. It's all I've ever known. Live for yourself instead of pleasing your father. Instead, you should surpass him. Show him just how great you are and that he was a fool to abandon you. Live for yourself, not for him. But, my quirk burns me. Every time I try to use it, I burn myself. I'll never be a hero that can surpass All Might. I'll never become more than just Endeavor's failure of a son. Toya frowned as he gripped his hands. He jumped when I placed both of my ethereal hands over his own. Not anymore. I took care of that. I smiled and motioned him to try out his quirk. Go on. Try again. Anxiously, Toya raised his hands and activated his quirk. Blue flames burst to life over his hands as a surprised expression took over his face. It doesn't hurt. My flames aren't burning me. Around us, The once chaotic and blazing environment began to rebuild itself while Enge's large, looming shadow began to disappear. That's right. I manipulated the shape of your soul so that your body could better handle your flames. Still, I suggest you be careful. It wasn't easy. I tried doing this dozens of times before, but you kept rejecting my help. Standing up, I smiled and held out a hand to Toya. I'm not sure if you'll remember our meeting when I leave, but I hope you remember that your life isn't tied to your father. Be your own man and surpass endeavor. Live for yourself. With a thoughtful expression, Toya looked down at his hands for a long time before he finally nodded. Looking up at me, Toya smiled and grabbed my outstretched hand. You're right. I'll surpass Dad, and I'll show him just how much more powerful I am than him. I'll make him regret ever ignoring me. He's still focused on his father. But this is a start. Smiling, I nodded at him as the soul space around us glowed a brilliant blue. Slowly, my surroundings grew into focus. Looking around, I blearily found myself in a dark and ruined forest with pillars of smoke all around me. It feels as if I just woke up from a long, long sleep. What did you do? Plus 350 SP. I looked up and saw a fully healed Darby, or should I say, Toya, looking over his fully restored body in disbelief. No longer did he have patches of purple, rubbery skin over him stapled together. No, he now held healthy skin with no signs of his past self. Even his black spiky hair had reverted back to look like his white childhood hairstyle. Just a bit longer and with large red patches on the sides. His voice was also different from before. Standing up, I watched as he activated his flames with wide eyes. My flames, they're not burning me. Turning to me, Toya stared at me with an unfocused look. What did you do? Plus 500 SP. Not much. I just had a little chat with someone you used to know. Brushing my hair back, I extended a hand to him. Now that you're back in one piece, let's talk about the future. General P. Standing in front of a mirror was a tall, white, and red-haired young man. He was entirely naked while his wet white hair hung low from the cold shower he had taken. Toya's blue eyes looked down at his fully intact body. His fingers traced over the locations where his old purple, leathery skin used to be. This ain't a dream. At the sound of his voice, Toya grabbed his throat and closed his eyes. He had grown used to the new voice he awoke with so long ago that this new voice of his made him feel like an imposter within his body. With a sigh, Toya looked away from his mirror and stepped out of the bathroom of his new safe house. Walking through the hallways, Toya entered his bedroom and dressed himself. Once fully clothed, he entered his living room and sat down, a heavy frown on his face. The safe house he was in was a gift given to him by his new boss, Sukuna. It was located on the outskirts of the city of Shizuoka, far away from anyone but not too far so he could walk into town to buy supplies. The King of Curses even told him that the house had several security measures that would keep anyone from stumbling into the home. To Toya, a bunch of handmade seals around the base wasn't exactly reassuring, but he'd trust Sukuna knew what he was doing. The goodwill didn't stop there. Sukuna had even given Toya enough money so he could live comfortably under his command. All these luxuries and benefits had thrown Toya off due to how generous the supposedly dangerous and powerful man Sukuna was. Use this place as your base for now. I'll keep you updated on when I have a job ready for you. He's nothing like I thought he would be, Toya muttered as he remembered Sukuna's parting words. Rubbing his head, Toya felt annoyed at how his body wasn't in a constant state of pain. Before, his body always felt as if it was being pulled apart from the inside out, but due to his strong willpower and hatred, he kept himself whole. But now, his body was pain-free. He no longer had to worry about coming undone because of whatever it was that Sukuna did to him. His once dull senses were now fully restored as well. Unlike before, Toya could now feel the subtle sensations and textures of his environment. When Toya asked how this was possible, all Sukuna said was that he had changed a part of him back to the way it was. To Toya, that made no sense. What did that mean? Even that doctor and that man who retrieved his destroyed body couldn't restore him. They said it was impossible to heal him back to the way he was. Impossible for them. But not for the King of Curses. One touch was all it took. And Toya was back to the way he was back when he climbed Sekoto Peak. Sukuna had performed a godly feat with seeming ease. For all intents and purposes, Darby was gone. Todoroki Toya was now back. At least physically. A fact that should have elated Toya ended up becoming a double-edged sword. He may no longer be in constant pain, and his quirk no longer burned him, but this new freedom only allowed his mind to fall into deep thought now that all its past distractions were gone. Be my own man. Toya muttered the odd words that had been plaguing his mind ever since his body was healed. With a shake of his head, Toya stood up and exited his base. No. I have to focus on my goal. Toya stopped in the middle of an extensive training field and lit up his hands with blue flames. Beneath the flames, his skin remained unblemished and perfectly fine. Destroying Endeavor is all that matters. With a swing of his arm, Toya obliterated one of the waiting training dummies into ash. Live for myself? What a joke. Shimizu Saotapa, this may just be enough, Kaina muttered as she looked over the large pile of documents, folders, videos, and pictures stacked along the long table in the war room of my house. The HPSC is a careful bunch. Very careful. I said as I picked up a picture showing off one of the Safety Commission's employed heroes standing over several dead corpses. Still, most of what I collected could still be disputed. Plus 15 SP, you're probably right. Kaina walked over beside me and opened the laptop on the table. However, combining all this evidence with these audio logs your crows collected, we now have undeniable proof of the Commission's dirty methods. Even if this isn't enough to completely shut them down, it'll get the ball rolling on an outside investigation to shut them down. Sorry, this took so long. Those suits don't work out in the open if they can help it. Especially that chairman. He's more elusive than a shiny munchlax. We're lucky my crows collected all this after a couple of months. I told Kaina as she turned to me with a smile. It'd be faster if I just killed them all. But that would just make the HPSC martyrs. No. This is more than I could ever collect on my own. Kaina said before she took on a pensive expression. Still, once we release this onto the world, all of Japan's HPSC's dirty secrets will be out in the open. Nodding, I looked at a picture showing a member of the board handing an envelope of money off to a high-profile villain. Once that happens, Hero Society as we know it will suffer. The public's trust in the system placed to keep them safe will be shattered. Not only that, but the public will begin to doubt the very heroes meant to protect them. As I spoke, a large smile broke onto my face. That's the best-case scenario. Plus 20 SP. Kaina sighed and sat down on one of the room's chairs. Yes, the truth of what the HPSC truly is will finally come to light. Raising her hands, Kaina smiled bitterly as she began to shake. Everything that I had done will finally come to light. Seeing her trembling form, I placed a hand on her shoulder. That's all in the past. Kaina. That's not who you are anymore. Now, you're so much more than what the HPSC created. Eri and Himiko rely on you, and you keep Jin in check. You're an integral part of our little family. Kaina looked up at me with wide eyes. So just leave the destruction of the HPSC to me. You've done enough. Just keep watching over Eri and everyone else. That'll be enough. Plus 95 SP. I've done enough. Kaina muttered, her eyes deep in thought. So, you're saying I should leave everything in your hands? Yep. I am the strongest, after all. I think All Might would disagree. General POV, the UA Sports Festival. An annual event held by UA High School where students from all 3 grades and courses have the opportunity to showcase their abilities in different competitions in order to be scouted by pro heroes and support agencies. This event is an excellent opportunity for students from each of the departments of the UA High School. For the students of the Hero course, the UA Sports Festival gives them the opportunity to display their abilities in front of pro heroes, who might want to hire them after graduation. For the students from the General Education course, this event gives them a chance to prove that they are worthy of being transferred to the Hero course based on the results of the UA Sports Festival. The reverse is also possible if Hero course students perform subpar. Students from the support and business courses can also be transferred, but they prefer to use the sports festival for other purposes. Some students from the support course use the UA Sports Festival to show off their inventions to support company executives. Meanwhile, Business course students generally have nothing to gain from the festival itself, so they use it to hone their skills as salespeople and run business simulations by selling snacks and souvenirs to the crowd and calculating the odds of other students. To summarize, the sports festival was an excellent opportunity for any UA student to show off to the world their potential and to build future connections in order to become successful. I can't believe it. I'm actually going to watch the sports festival in person, Izuku said with excitement as he peered down at the large arena below. I've always watched it from home on TV or on my laptop, but never in person. From beside him, Hitoshi placed a calming hand on the hyped-up hero otaku. Easy there, Izuku-san. You're getting looks from those below. Oh, right. Look. We're right next to the CEO of Muraka Industries, one of the leading suppliers of support gear and equipment. Mai pressed her face against the room's glass wall as she used her eyes to zoom in on the private rooms to their left. I knew I should have brought a few of my babies. Wait, maybe I can show him a few of my schematics. Hatsume-san, please calm down as well. Sighing in exasperation, Hitoshi walked over to Mai. I can't believe Su-chan got us a private room to watch it all. These places cost an arm and a leg. Keiko said with equal excitement as she looked around the luxurious room above the enormous stadium. The room was large and equipped with several comfortable seating options, while a wall lined with televisions showed off several different angles of the stadium below. Off to the side was a table full of snacks and refreshments, while 2 private bathrooms sat off in the corner. The room was indeed the best way to experience the UA Sports Festival. I helped pay for it too, Jin said with a small smile, only to be ignored by Keiko. It seems she still doesn't like me. From beside him, Kaina smiled in amusement and patted his shoulder. She'll come around, eventually. Jin could only nod with hope. Wow, it's so big, Eri said with a large smile as she looked down at the massive crowds below. When are Oni-chan and Oni-chan going to show up? Kneeling beside her, Keiko smiled warmly at Eri. Very soon, Eri-chan. The opening ceremony should begin in a few minutes. Are you excited to watch Su-chan and Himiko-chan compete? MHA. Standing up, Keiko turned to Kaina and Jin with a smile, but when she turned to the masked man, her smile seemed fake. Thank you once again, Nakashima-san, for letting us join you all. I hope we're not being a bother. It's no bother. I'm glad to have Sauta-san, Sauta-kun and Himiko-chan's friends watch them in person. Kaina smiled awkwardly as she reached over to hold Jin's hand, causing the man to stiffen up and nod robotically. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Keiko nodded and went back to talking to Eri. With her attention gone, Kaina and Jin pulled their hands back with embarrassed blushes as they each walked off in different directions. Jin went toward the snack bar while Kaina went to the bathroom to splash water on her face. Their display of affection was because they posed as a husband and wife, with Eri being the adoptive daughter of Keiko, Izuku, Mai, Hitoshi, or anyone else who asked how they were all related. Presenting themselves as a family was the most effective way to describe their close relationship to the public while concealing their true identities. This approach allowed Sauta and Himiko to avoid the need for elaborate lies about why they were together. However, Kaina and Jin's family performance led both adults to show subtle acts of affection, which left them feeling flustered. Hey! Make some noise, everyone. Let's get this sports festival underway. Present MIC's loud, boisterous voice shook the stadium, causing the extensive crowd in the stadium to cheer. Let's hear some cheers as our students make their way onto the big stage. It's starting. It's starting. Eri shouted as she jumped excitedly. Up above the stadium, several fireworks popped off, illuminating the sky with a dazzling array of colors. Welcome back to the UA Sports Festival, where up-and-coming heroes leave everything on the field as they fight for the chance to achieve worldwide fame and celebrity. This first group consists of our up-and-coming students with bright futures. Coming hot off the presses is the hero course of Class 1A. Present MIC announced with great energy. As everyone approached the glass wall, they gazed down at the stadium with big smiles on their faces. Izuku and Keiko bounced with excitement while Hitoshi scanned the stadium entrances with wide eyes, searching for his sensei and friend. Kinda picked up Eri so the young girl could have a better view, and Jin walked out wearing a headband that had the word victory painted on it. Not to be outdone, here is the hero course class 1B. Next up, General Studies C, D, and E. Everyone in the room leaned in, scanning the incoming wave of students. After a quick glance, Izuku pointed out Sauta and Himiko, who were walking together in their class group. Himiko was all smiles, waving enthusiastically at the crowd, while Sauta appeared bored, his sleepy expression accentuated by his hands stuffed in his pockets. There they are. Eri cheered as she turned to one of the televisions on the wall that zoomed in on Class 1D. It's Onichan and Onichan. Keiko turned to the screen and sighed as she saw her older brother figure look uninterested in being a part of one of Japan's most popular events. Yep. That's about what I expected from him. Support classes F, G, and H. And finally, business classes I, J, and K. Give it up for all of UA's first-year contestants. Present MIC finished announcing as all the gathered students lined up in front of a tall podium. Standing on the podium was a person dressed in a white spacesuit-inspired outfit featuring a puffy jacket instead of an actual suit. They wore a black helmet with white eyes and a pair of yellow boots while holding a microphone in their hands. Oh my god. It's Space Hero 13. Izuku geeked out at this year's UA umpire. So cool. Okay, everyone. Settle down. 13's calm but confident voice echoed through the stadium speaker as she motioned to the gathered students. It's time for the introductory speech. The loud roars from the crowds shook the stadium as my class and I walked out. Himiko smiled and waved at the camera and crowds while I trailed behind her. You do know all these people are here for the hero courses. I heard Hikari say to Himiko. The blonde turned to her and shrugged. I know, but I don't really care. Himiko smiled and continued to wave. Her eyes were unfocused but somehow sharp. I'm waving for a different reason. Ah. This is for her family. A big ol' F you. Despite the confusion her statement caused, Himiko's determination was palpable. Before anyone could question her, we were all instructed to form up. As the umpire's voice faded into the background, I found myself lost in my own thoughts. The sports festival, to me, was a colossal waste of time. Lasting as long as a regular school day, I couldn't help but question its purpose. Sure, I tuned in to watch every other year, but those times were out of curiosity to see just how this school would pit a bunch of kids to fight one another for the country's entertainment. Other than that, I saw this event as a large advertisement to show off this country's future heroes, quirks, to the criminal world. Not only was UA giving the future villains and criminals a quick preview of what they could face one day, but they were also showing off all of the students' quirks for all for one to steal one day. However, due to the events of earlier today, I did have one news for the sports festival today. Hopefully, UA had set up some tough, challenging events for me to test out my newly won reward. Speaking of all for one, he hasn't made another move in months after the whole Nomu fight. The only possible reason he'd send that thing to try and kill me would be to see how I'd match up to it. Considering how it looks to him and everyone else, I may have a quirk similar to his. My existence posed a substantial threat to him. The way I saw it, there were two options all for one could take. Option 1. Kill me. Option 2. Find a way to recruit me into his forces. That begs the question. Why hasn't the man made another move? What exactly is that potato head plotting? Now then, it's time we begin this year's round of games. 13 announced loudly, bringing me out of my thoughts. Did I miss the opening announcement and pledge? Bah, who cares? The opening game for this year's festival will be a relay race. 13 motioned to the humongous screens at the top of the stadium. The screens displayed a lengthy and challenging course outside the stadium. This path stretched for an extensive 15 kilometers, leading to the finish line. It began on the outskirts of Musutafu and concluded back at the sports festival stadium. Along the route, various obstacles and challenges lined the path that would require careful consideration and the appropriate use of their quirks. This event will be a team-based competition involving all courses. Each team must consist of at least 3 to 6 members. Once your teams are formed, each member will be positioned at various points along the race path. Like a traditional relay race, one member of your team will carry a baton and hand it over to the next member during each leg of the race. The space-themed announcer explained as a charming video illustrated the event rules. Keep in mind that the size of your team will affect the distance each member needs to run. As long as you maintain possession of the baton and stay within the designated race course, you are free to do whatever it takes to achieve victory. However, if you drop the baton or if it is destroyed during the race, your entire team will be disqualified. Once your teams are formed, please proceed to the shuttle buses in the parking lot, which will take you to the starting line of the race. A team-based event, I muttered as everyone around me scrambled to form their teams. The quality of one's quirk will determine the outcome of this race, considering the many challenges along the path. Those with speed-based abilities will be highly sought after. Yeah, that means that getting someone with a quirk like that is the main goal. Himiko nodded as the two of us watched several teams begin to form. Off where the hero course student stood, several arguments were being waged on who would be with whom. Shrugging, Himiko jumped next to me and hugged my arm. "Ah, well. All I need is you on my team, and we'll be golden." Smiling, I looked around at the severe lack of people around us. While I don't mind that, we need one more person to join our team. Those are the rules. Plus 10 SP, bleh. Himiko pouted as we began to look around for our third teammate. Even our so-called friends had scattered in hopes of joining a strong-looking team, which I couldn't blame them for. They were all eager to prove themselves and get the chance to transfer into the hero course. So many Gen Ed students are trying their best, she said as we watched several of our classmates joining strong teams. The most impressive group from our class was the one with you taking the lead. Feeling my stare, he turned to me and grinned. "I'll be waiting for you at the finish line," his grin seemed to say to me. Still, no one is going to want to join a team with the only quirkless guy in the school. Due to being the only quirkless student in the school, my reputation was already well known throughout all of the first-year courses. Add on my known relationships with the future Big Three and my high combat abilities, there wasn't anyone who didn't know me. And, by extension, my quirkless nature. Would it be possible if someone like me could join you too? Himiko and I blinked in surprise as we turned to a girl with extremely long dark blue hair. She had low, thick bangs that obscured her eyes, and a shy frown was hidden behind her high collar. Unlike everyone else, who wore short-sleeved gym uniforms, she was dressed in the school's winter gym uniform. Despite her shy demeanor, Himiko smiled and quickly nodded. "Of course. Welcome to the team. I'm Toga Himiko and this is Shimizu Sauta. We're part of Class 1D of the General Education course." The long-haired girl looked momentarily surprised, but she quickly composed herself. "Ah, right. The social convention of introduction. My name is Chino Shizuko, and I am a student of the business course. Class 1J. The business course? That's odd. Those guys tend to choose to hang back and not try at these events. Well then, Chino," I said casually and walked up to the shy girl, causing her to squeak. "No honorifics." Shizuko whispered as I inspected her. Plus 7 SP. What can you do? General POV, Shuji Saito's quirk is called Overcome. Overcome allows Saito to slowly evolve his body to overcome any physical damage done to his body. However, the process is painfully slow. When he was a child, Saito had broken his arm while playing at the park. Thanks to his quirk, his body had evolved to withstand any more fractures or pressure that would result in a broken bone. Essentially, his skeleton is unbreakable due to conventional injuries. But this evolution took over 8 years to take place, making what would normally be an incredibly powerful quirk impractical for hero work. After all, for Saito's body to evolve, he would have to wait for his body to slowly evolve from any injury or ailment done to him. One could have concluded that thanks to his quirk, Saito's skin would have been tough enough not to be pierced through by the box cutter knife Toga Himiko used on him the day she drank his blood. After all, at a young age, children were prone to injury or cuts. This remained true for Saito as well. Unfortunately, his body was still in the process of evolving and was still 5 years away from having his skin become impenetrable to cuts or slices, resulting in him being sent to the hospital after being attacked on that fateful day. This quirk may be impractical to most, but to me, It's the height of potential. All for One smiled in glee as he stood next to a short bald man who wore round goggles over his eyes while a bushy brown mustache sat over his upper lip. This man was All for One's faithful servant, Dr. Garaki Kyudai. The two stood deep within the underground laboratory underneath the Jaku hospital. Nodding, Dr. Kyudai watched in fascination as he and his master watched from the safety of the very thick glass wall as Saito screamed bloody murder. His body was lined with several pipes while he was continuously being pumped with electricity, fire, ice, and several more elements. Young Saito's body has acclimated to the quirk you gifted him, fast forward, rather well. Dr. Kyudai said as he watched Saito throw up a glob of blood. Thanks to it, his body is now pushed to evolve 4 times as fast. He is indeed a subject brimming with potential. If only my subordinate at the DQAR University Hospital had handed me young Saito's file much earlier, you would have had the perfect weapon long ago, Master. Chuckling, All for One continued to watch as Saito's body continued to be punished, attacked, and torn, pushing his body to evolve quickly. It matters not. What matters is that we now have the perfect weapon to use against All Might and even Sukyuna should he foolishly turn my offer down. He would be a fool not to accept, Master. We shall see. All for One watched as Saito's pained expression slowly shifted into an unbridled rage as the young man watched the wall of televisions replay the fight between Sukyuna and several of Japan's heroes over and over again, fueling him with the will to push through the mind-breaking levels of pain. My forces are currently searching for the elusive Sukyuna. Once is found, I'll offer him a hand in friendship. And should Sukyuna refuse? Dr. Kyudai looked away from Saito and watched as a small grin grew on All for One's scarred face as he watched Saito continuously be tortured and attacked. Within the isolated room, small, sharp bones began to grow out of Saito's skin. His once pitch-black hair now sported several patches of bright white hair as his black eyes took on a low golden hue. Saito's mouth was frothing with spit and blood as his teeth dug into his gums from how tightly they were clenched. Despite all the pain he was currently undergoing, his vision remained razor-focused on the replaying video before him. Most specifically, his focus was zeroed in on the mask-wearing king of curses himself. Sukyuna. Saito growled. Kill. I'll kill you. Deep within his pain-stricken, broken mind, an image of a blonde girl with yellow cat-like eyes flashed before his eyes. Remembering the cause of all his misfortune, Saito smiled wickedly. For some odd reason, Sukyuna had destroyed his life for Toga Himiko. Could this mean that the infamous king of curses and the psychotic, bloodthirsty girl were connected in some way? Was she important to him? Were they friends? Family? Lovers? Whatever the case, Saito knew that Sukyuna cared about Himiko. But first, I'll take away everything you ever cared about just like you did to me. General POV, Himiko hummed to herself as she stood alongside several other students. Like a regular relay race, she and everyone else would have to run down their assigned track until they reached their awaiting teammate. Once there, they would pass on their baton to the next person to continue the race. The length of distance each runner would need to sprint would determine how many members each team held. But in Himiko's case, she would need to run a total of 5 kilometers before she could reach the awaiting Chino Shizuko. It was a long distance for any one person to run at a constant fast pace. The ideal solution would have been to have 5 members in a team to reduce each member's overall run time. However, due to Soata's well-known quirkiness status during the first years, no one else wanted to join their team. Not even those within their oddball group of friends from their class. Sorry, Himiko-chan. From beside Himiko, Hikari said with regret as they watched the timer count down from a floating balloon in the sky. I would have joined your and Shimizu-kun's team, but I want to win and transfer into the hero course. Seeing the regret in Hikari's eyes, Himiko's initial frown softened into a reassuring smile. Don't worry, Hikari-chan. It's just a game. No hard feelings. Really? You're not upset with me? Nope. But you're buying me lunch for a week. Okay. Himiko smiled as she leaned forward. The timer on the balloon was now at 5 seconds. Hikari blinked in shock at Himiko's statement. A W week. But I dashed ding. As the buzzer echoed across the vast racetrack, signaling the start of the race, Himiko's focus sharpened. With a burst of speed, she dashed forward down her lane, the wind whipping past her. Behind her, Hikari, caught off guard, ran after her with a startled cry. As she ran, Himiko watched as she quickly passed her fellow competitors with ease. Looks like all that running through the mountains wasn't a waste of time. Still, Saotakuan is such a slave driver when it comes to training. Even as she ran, Himiko watched as those with speed or running-based quirks quickly ran beyond her. Ooh, look at them go. As Himiko surged forward on the racetrack, adrenaline coursed through her veins, amplifying her every movement. The rhythmic thud of her feet against the ground was drowned out by the cheers of the crowd and the sharp gust of wind rushing past her ears. Ahead, the racetrack twisted and turned, presenting a series of obstacles designed to test each runner's agility and speed. The first obstacle loomed in front of her, a series of hurdles lined up like a gauntlet. Without a moment's hesitation, she leaped over the first hurdle, her legs propelling her upward with precision. Himiko could feel the exhilaration bubbling inside her even though she didn't much care about the sports festival or the cheers around her. This is sorta fun. One by one, she soared over the hurdles, her focus unwavering as she timed each jump perfectly, landing with graceful determination. Behind her, some of the competitors tripped and failed at clearing the hurdles, resulting in Himiko chuckling at their lack of athletic skill. As she cleared the last of the hurdles, an uneven patch of ground appeared before her, littered with small cones and flags. A quick sidestep to the left, a swift pivot to the right, and she danced through the maze of obstacles with a fluidity born of countless training sessions. Even though I can't use my quirk here, these obstacles are easy enough for me to get past by without it, Himiko thought as she ran. Suddenly, a low mechanical wall rose up next, requiring her to scale it with a burst of strength. Himiko reached out, gripping the edge, and hoisted herself up and over in one swift motion. The moment she landed on the other side, she glanced back at Hikari, who was trailing behind and struggling to hold on to her baton and art supplies. You can do it, Hikari-chan. Fight on. Right. The final challenge was a narrow balance beam that stretched across the track. With little time to spare, Himiko quickly sped through the beam with ease. Her incredible balance and nimbleness allowed her to quickly pass the students with their speed-based quirks. Finally, Himiko reached the end, jumping off the beam with a triumphant flourish. The track opened up before her once more, and she could see Shizuko waiting patiently at the exchange point. With a final surge of energy, Himiko sprinted down the remainder of the track, her heart racing in sync with her pounding feet. For Himiko, today was not just about competing at the famous UA festival for fun. Himiko was making a profound declaration not to her classmates or to the hundreds of people watching but to her family. Himiko wanted to show them all that she was always more than what they thought her to be. Go, Shizuko-chan. Himiko yelled as she gave the awkward blue-haired girl the baton. We're not that close. Please refer to me as Chino-san, Shizuko said as she sped off. Himiko smiled widely before she leaned on her knees to recover her breath. Standing up straight, she looked over to a flying camera and made a peace sign. Chino Shizuko is a student in Class 1J, part of the business course at UA High School. Throughout her life, Shizuko was known for her extraordinary intelligence, a fact that was evident in her top scores at school and her knack for solving complex problems that left her peers bewildered. This intelligence also allowed her to gain the #1 spot on UA's written exam. With an uncanny ability to absorb information, she could engage in deep discussions about quantum physics or the intricacies of ancient literature at the drop of a hat. Yet, despite her impressive intellect, Shizuko often found herself at odds with the world around her. Her social interactions, while well-intentioned, frequently felt like walking through a minefield. Shizuko's awkward nature made her hesitant in conversations, her words often tumbling out in jumbled phrases, betraying the clarity of thought she had in her mind. Simple exchanges felt daunting. She would often misinterpret the subtleties of humor or struggle to read the room. This led to many moments of cringeworthy silence or misunderstandings that isolated her further from her classmates. It's that weird girl again. Yeah. She's so weird. She's always staring at us. What's up with that? Get lost, weirdo. Go back to the library where you belong. Such words were the tip of the iceberg of what was said to or around her. Despite her peers' jeers and mockery, Shizuko's brilliance shone brightly in academic pursuits, but when it came to forming friendships, it was as if she had missed a crucial chapter in the social manual. Her peers admired her intellect but often felt perplexed by her peculiar quirks and the way her thoughts seemed to circle around ideas, making it hard for them to connect with her on a personal level. Leaving her alone and isolated. Determined not to let her awkwardness define her, Shizuko sought ways to bridge the gap between her intelligence and the complexities of human interaction. She immersed herself in books about social dynamics and even tried attending workshops. Each small success nudged her forward, but the journey was a bumpy one filled with missteps and self-doubt. Deep down, Shizuko knew she possessed a wealth of ideas and potential friendships if only she could learn to navigate the labyrinth of social cues that seemed to elude her grasp. So, one day, she came to the conclusion that if she joined the country's most famous hero-based academy, UA High School, Shizuko believed that she would meet others like her and ultimately connect with them. Unfortunately, she quickly found out she was wrong to believe such a thing. Even after joining UA, Shizuko was still met with isolation and hurtful comments about how weird she was. "Maybe I joined the wrong course," Shizuko said, thinking that perhaps those in the hero course would be more open-minded to her intricacies than those in the business course, who seemed to have the IQ of room-temperature water. Normally, those within the business course didn't bother to participate in the sports festival due to the event not benefiting them in any way. But for Shizuka, it was her chance to get out of her current school curriculum. While she didn't care much about the heroics part of the hero course, Shizuko would bear with it. So, she formulated a new plan for using this year's sports festival to transfer out of the business course and into the hero course. If she could join their ranks, surely she would meet some like-minded people and end her isolation. "Go, Shizuko-chan," Himiko yelled as she gave Shizuko the baton. "We're not that close. Please refer to me as Chino-san," Shizuko said as she sped off to begin her part of the relay. As she ran, a slight warmth grew in her chest from how Himiko referred to her with a smile. "No, focus on the goal at hand," Shizuko thought as she watched her fellow students pass her due to her low speed. The first obstacle loomed large, a set of towering walls designed to test her strength and agility. As she approached, Shizuko focused, recalling the countless atomic and molecular structures she memorized throughout her life. Shizuko's quirk was called alchemy. Using her high intelligence and quirk, she can change any object into another as long as she has scientific knowledge of their atomic and molecular structure, meaning that she can transform any known physical substance into another. Placing a hand on the ground, Shizuko instantly calculated the molecular structure of the ground beneath her and activated her quirk. Streams of lightning danced around her, and a soft hum echoed below her. In an instant, a large hand made of stone and dirt rose from the ground and carried her over the wall. "Holy crap! Did you see that?" A student with dog ears screamed as he struggled to climb the tall wall. "What kinda quirk is that? It's so cool. Shit. I gotta hurry." Landing on the other side, Shizuko hopped off the hand and began running again. Her breaths came out quickly as sweat covered her body. Perhaps father was right. I should have invested some time to build my physical prowess. Shizuko gasped as she continued running. Next came a series of slanted hurdles they called the Spike Challenge. With a deep breath, she activated her quirk to create a bridge over the hurdles, allowing her to run over each of the obstacles. A few competitors glared at her as they watched her breeze by the challenge, but she tuned them out, focusing solely on her own rhythm. The wind whipped past her as she ran with all her might toward the following challenge, a treacherous zigzag of tall metal cones. Shizuko's heart hammered in her chest. "And my heart is beating too quickly. I need to rest. Otherwise, I may pass out." With awkward footwork, she wove slowly through the cones. Her speed was all but gone as she completed the challenge. Those who were once impressed by her quirk now all passed her quickly as they laughed at her sluggish pace. Her final hurdle loomed ahead, a wide pit filled with foam blocks designed to test her agility on landing. "I can't. I'm so tired," she muttered as she leaned on her knees to catch her erratic breath. Lifting her head, Shizuko peered out from behind her hanging bangs to see Sauta waiting for her before the rope climb challenge. Oddly enough, the tall, black-haired student who accepted her into his team was moving his lips. Using her lip-reading ability, Shizuko quickly realized what Sauta was saying to her. You can do this, Chino. Just take your time. Does he believe in me? Shizuko thought with wonder as the new sensation from earlier filled her chest once again. Looking down at her baton, she took a deep breath and nodded to herself. Shizuko placed a hand on the ground and launched herself over the pit with the help of a speeding platform. Those below her all watched with envy and shock as she once again skipped through the obstacle due to her quirk. However, due to her burst of uncontrolled emotions, Shizuko forgot to calculate how much speed she was traveling. With a jerk, Shizuko flew off a stone platform and fell to the ground. Closing her eyes, she braced herself, but the pain from her fall never came. Gotcha. Opening her eyes, Shizuko looked up at Sauta's black eyes as she rested in his arms. You know, Chino, you have some pretty eyes. It's a shame you hide them behind your hair. Sauta then placed her down and grabbed the baton. You did well. Now, take a break. I'll finish this. From her spot on the ground, Shizuko looked around at the lack of students nearby. Frowning, the blue-haired girl felt a pang of shame. Due to her slow speed, she had caused her team to fall behind. I'm sorry for my lack of running ability, Shimizu-san. I've caused us to fall behind. You may not be able to reach the finish line in time. Shizuko said in disappointment. She slowly stood to her feet, her gaze focused on the floor. Our loss is due to me. Don't sweat it, Sauta said and patted her head. I'll catch up. Just watch me. Before she could respond, Sauta leaned forward and exploded forward. Blinking in confusion, Shizuko lost track of him as he disappeared down the track. So that's who scored beneath me on the written exam. Shimizu Sauta POV. A few hours ago, after spending around half an hour gambling, I finally came upon one of the rewards I'd been looking forward to the most. You have pulled Fushiguro Toji's heavenly restriction body. Rank, Platinum. Blinking, I got up from my bed and stared at the system screen with wide, excited eyes. It's about damn time. Looking down at my body, I felt a swell of raw, primal power fill my muscles, bones, and skin. Suddenly, I felt another sensation. Error. You now have a heavenly restriction. All curse techniques and curse energy are now unusable to the user. Say what? Feeling dread filled me. I tried to use any of my techniques in CE but found nothing. Hell. Never mind. Take this reward back. It ain't worth it. Despite my cries, the system had nothing to say. Feeling dejected, I fell to my knees and wallowed in my misery. I guess that's it. Now downloading a new update. The Jujutsu Kaisen Gacha system will now overwrite the heavenly restriction to allow the user access to all their current techniques and curse energy alongside the benefits of the Fushiguro Toji's heavenly restriction body. Time to finish update, 6 hours 23 minutes and 53 seconds, a week. I have to go without my techniques and CE for an entire week. Standing up, I sighed in relief and thanked my system for its thoughtfulness. Moving around, I felt that I still retained all the strength and speed of Toji's body. How frustrating. Still, from what I remember, Toji's strength is nothing to sneeze at. The man was capable of defeating both Gojo and Geto during hidden inventory. Still, that begs the question. Just how strong am I now? Turning to where Zaiko was, I struggled to see my inventory Shikigami. Frowning, I focused my advanced perception and slowly began to see Zaiko without actually seeing him. Heh. So that's how Moki and Toji perceive cursed spirits and Shikigami. Walking over to Zaiko, he looked up at me with confusion at my lack of CE. Don't worry, bud. This is only temporary. Once the update is complete, I'll be on a completely different level. As I patted Zaiko's scruffy head, I couldn't help but shake in excitement. Using CE enhancement on my current body already gave me a massive burst of speed and power. But what would happen when I enhanced the body of a heavenly restricted body that reached the pinnacle of physical strength? Now, that was something I couldn't wait to test out. Sukuna-kun? Everything okay? From the other side of my door, Himiko knocked. Yeah, everything is fine. Standing up, I walked over to the door and smiled down at Himiko. Blinking, I realized that I had also grown taller. A fact that Himiko quickly picked up. Plus 25 SP. Wow. Boys sure do grow a lot during puberty. It's like you grew overnight. Himiko held her hand over my head before holding it over her own. You're way taller than before. Looking down at myself, I noticed that my clothes were slightly tight on me while my pant legs hovered over my ankles. Walking over to my bathroom mirror, I quickly deduced that I must now be around 183 centimeters tall. A big jump from my past 175 centimeters height. I guess puberty hit me like a truck last night, I told Himiko as she looked over my arm's muscles with a blush. Blinking out of her thoughts, she looked over to my school uniform and then at the time. Plus 35 SP. Get dressed. We'll be late for the festival at this rate. Himiko said as she stuffed my uniform into my arms and pushed me into my bathroom. Hurry, hurry. Yeah. The present. With each stride, I grinned at the amount of distance I could cross with nothing but my pure strength and speed. It was as if I was using 10% of my CE to enhance myself, allowing me to run at speeds reaching up to 30 miles per hour. And I was barely trying. As I dashed across my designated racetrack, I quickly passed those who had a massive head start on me, leaving them to gawk at my back because they did not expect me to reach them due to my late start. While I may not have cared about the sports festival before, it was now the perfect opportunity to test out what my new body could truly do. Or at least, test the waters with a bunch of snot-nosed kids. Now then, let's hurry up and catch up. General POV. What an interesting use of quirks. Nezu watched the ongoing relay race from the floating jumbotrons over the center of the festival stadium. There were several different angles showing off dozens of the racing students. Throughout the race, these students used their quirks to help them overcome the obstacles and challenges in their way. Each use of their abilities showed off their creativity and skill. Those with speed-based quirks hold the advantage in this game, at least during the straightforward running portions. A man wearing a stereotypical Western cowboy hat said. This was the pro hero sniper, a member of UA's teaching staff. Beside him within the luxury box were several other UA teaching staff members, who were made up of several more pro heroes. Heroes including Eraserhead, Midnight, Vlad King, Hound Dog, Ectoplasm, Moonlight, and Recovery Girl. This year's Class 1A is a little underwhelming. Vlad King said with his arms crossed as he watched those within the heroics course performing with mediocrity. At least Class 1B has some shining stars. Midnight nodded as she and Hound Dog watched those within Class 1B leading the race. There were even some students who had already cleared the finish line, cementing their place for the next round of games. Down below in the stadium, all those who had finished the race were bathed with cheers and applause. It seems that there are some students within the general education course with some promise. Recovery Girl said with a smile as she watched Taijima Yu clear all of the obstacles with several ingenious uses of his quirk. Others like Muraka Kohaku, Hoshino Juru, Ike Mitsuko, and Ishimoto Keiichi were all performing exceptionally well as they neared the finish line. We may have several potential transfers this year. Nezu grinned and turned to their newest staff member, Class 1DS homeroom teacher, Shinwae Onimu. Your students are brimming with potential, Moonlight. If they continue to perform at this level, they may end up leaving your class. It's fine. This is UA, after all. Moonlight said tiredly as she watched her students perform. Joining the hero course is several of these kids' dreams, after all. Nezu nodded in agreement. He and everyone watched as several more teams crossed the finish line. His small, beady eyes then moved back up at the Jumbotron to see one of the teams that was lagging behind. Ah, there he is. UA's lone quirkless student. Nezu said with a smile as he watched Shimizu Sauta patiently wait for his teammate, Chino Shizuko, to clear her final obstacle. What a shame. I was excited to see how he would have performed on the second game, but I'm afraid he and his team may not clear the finish line before it's too late. Off to the side, Eraserhead remained silent as his tired eyes remained glued on Sauta and Shizuko. He watched with growing interest as Shizuko used her quirk to fly over the obstacle in front of her, but due to her rashness, She ended up flying off the pillar of stone she had created. OD. Recovery Girl muttered as she watched Shizuko fall to the ground at a fast speed. Injury seemed all but certain. But before she, the blue-haired girl, could fall, Sauta leaped high into the air and caught her effortlessly. How curious. Nezu frowned as he watched the black-haired boy gently place Shizuko down. That was an incredible display of physical strength and speed. Almost too incredible, Snipe muttered with suspicion. Could Shimizu have lied about his quirkless status? That move he performed shouldn't be possible without a quirk. He leaped well over 3 meters into the air. His quirkless. Eraserhead said, gaining everyone's attention. I used my quirk on him during a spar he had with one of his classmates, and nothing changed. The only logical reason for this is that Shimizu either trained his body to its utmost limits or was born with incredible physical prowess. Either way, his combat and physical abilities are on a completely different level than his peers. On the screen, Sauta grabbed his team's baton and leaned forward. In an instant, the boy all but exploded forward with incredible speed. Quickly, Sauta began to catch up and even started to surpass all those who had a significant head start on him in record time. That speed, it's comparable to the top athletes in the Olympics before quirks first appeared. And he's doing it without breaking a sweat. Eraserhead said with a slight grin. This kid. Ever since the first appearance of quirks in Qingqing City, China, it's been proven that the human body has undergone a small form of evolution to better handle their new powers. Nezu began saying with an intrigued smile as he watched Sauta outperforming his peers. This has caused a small boost of strength, speed, and durability to the average person from one generation to the next. But I've never seen it to such an extent. Shimizu Sauta. How interesting. Shimizu Sauta poo. It seems that a few teams have crossed the finish line, I muttered as I leaped over another jutting mechanical barrier with ease. There are only a few slots left. I guess I should speed up a little. My eyes scanned the obstacle in front of me, which was a series of metal barriers as tall as 3 to 5 meters that rose and fell randomly from the slots on the ground. Off to my side, my fellow competitors were either waiting for the barriers to fall so they could vault over, or they would use their quirks to help them over them. With a grin on my face, I dashed forward and ran up the barriers with ease. Using my strength, I dug my feet into the metal to use as footholds to keep me vertical. Reaching the top, I jumped off the 5-meter-tall barrier and utilized the following obstacles as stepping stones to clear the challenge within a few seconds, leaving behind several shocked students. What the hell? I thought he was quirkless. Such speed. Shit. I'm not gonna lose. Landing on the track, I burst forward and effortlessly passed several running students far off at my sides. Reaching my next obstacle, I saw a deep ditch with floating platforms hovering in the sky. Off ahead, I saw a member of Class 1C try to jump from platform to platform, but she was unprepared for the floating platform below her to suddenly lose altitude, causing her to lose her balance and fall to the depths below. I'm okay. Humming, I used my speed, balance, and agility to effortlessly clear my own platforms. I can go faster, much faster, but I have to hold back enough so I don't raise too many questions. How boring. With a sigh, I rushed forward and cleared my next and final obstacle, which was a series of rope climbs over a large man-made lake. Rolling across the ground, I stood up and burst forward toward the large stadium, where a deafening wave of cheers greeted me. With the finish line behind me, I successfully secured my team's place for the next round. The next game is Dodgeball. 13 announced as several rising platforms and arenas slid out of the stadium floor. Each of these varied in height and contained several different environmental obstacles, such as rocky plateaus, wild forests, urban areas, and the largest of them all, a wide range filled with ruins and debris. Scattered throughout these areas were rubber dodgeballs of various colors waiting patiently to be used. Damn, I whistled as Himiko and Shizuko stood beside me as the rest of the first game winners watched in or as the stadium finished becoming a sprawling battleground. This school spared no expense. +5 SP, indeed. Shizuko nodded as she inspected the rocky plateaus off to the south side of the stadium. The arenas are all on different height levels. Acquiring the high ground could prove advantageous in this game. Ooh, they got the nice dodgeballs. These make the best sound when you smack someone just right in the face. Himiko jumped excitedly as she looked around our soon-to-be battleground. Listen carefully, as I will now explain the rules for this game. 13 announced as another cute cartoon began to play on the Jumbotrons. The main objective is to eliminate all members of the opposing teams by throwing the ball at them. To stay in the game, you must dodge any incoming balls to avoid being hit. If a ball makes contact with you, you are out of the game. You are not allowed to use a ball in your possession to block or deflect an incoming ball. However, you can throw your ball to deflect an incoming dodgeball, preventing it from striking you. Up on the screen, a quick clip of a Chibi Endeavor throwing a dodgeball to Chibi All Might played. But before the ball could hit the number 1 hero, he raised the ball in his own possession and threw the incoming ball off course. As before, you are allowed to use your quirks to avoid any balls or to navigate the stadium. However, attacking anyone with your quirks is strictly prohibited. If you do so, you will be disqualified. The umpire turned away from the large screen, which displayed a chibi version of Endeavor using his flames to move from one location to another. From the remaining 48 contestants, there will be 12 teams, each consisting of 4 students. Ultimately, only 4 teams will advance to the finals. Without further ado, you may now choose your teammates, and we will begin the game shortly. Immediately, everyone around us began to scramble around to find their teammates. Some students broke off from the teams they created for the relay race, while others outright kicked some people out to make room for someone else. Some of these kids are cutthroat. Nice. Heh. Where are you going, Shizuko-chan? I turned back and saw Shizuko pause mid-step. She looked surprised as she turned to Himiko and me. I'm sure you two would prefer team members with better suited quirks for this game. I may only hamper your chances of victory. Shizuko said in a small voice. At her withdrawn body language, I could immediately tell that this girl was used to being left out. Thank you for helping me to have made it this far. What are you talking about? I muttered and placed a hand on her shoulder, causing her to squeak in surprise at the fact that I was touching her. She didn't seem too keen on physical contact. Your quirk doesn't really matter to us. Just stay here. We'll make it to the finals. +8 SP. Yeah. Besides, I saw some of the replays of your race. Your quirk is super cool. Himiko smiled as she patted Shizuko's other shoulder. However, her smile became strained as she fell into thought. It's almost like his. Shizuko's quirk does resemble Chisaki's. Still, it works in a completely different way than his. Taking my hand away, I turned to the short blue-haired girl and gave her a small smile. Just do your best, Chino. I'll handle the rest. +10 SP. Well, if you're sure, then I will continue to count on you both. Shizuko nodded to us both. This helped to snap Himiko out of her head. Great. Now then, we just need one more teammate. Himiko said as she began to look around at the gathered students. But before she could search for a potential teammate, Hikari appeared in front of us with a tired but hopeful and remorseful expression. Could I join your team? With our team of 4 now complete, we headed off to grab our team jerseys, which ended up being orange t-shirts. As I slipped on my jersey, I took a look at everyone who I would be smacking around with the red rubber balls of death. A large portion of classes 1A and B were present, while a few scattered Gen Ed and support students stood around. As expected, most of the teams that were formed were composed of those within their own classes. Some familiar faces I could see from my class were Yu, Juru, Keiichi, and Kohaku. Looks like most of our class didn't make it in. I looked over to all those who failed to make it into the second round of games off to the side of the upcoming dodgeball arena. They all stood with dejected expressions as the rules for their own recreational games were explained. Within the group, I could see Toshio, Mitsuko, Kazuhiro, and the rest of my classmates. Turning to me, Toshio's pathetic face noticed me standing with a jersey and began to cry. I waved at him with a shit-eating grin. +10 SP. How did Shimizu make it in and not me? Toshio cried to the heavens as he fell to his knees. Damn it all. Shimizu-san. Hearing my name, I turned and saw you standing in front of me with a challenging grin. His red jersey hung loosely on his chest. I knew you would make it to the next round. Just to let you know, I don't plan on losing this time. Off behind me, Himiko, Hikari, and Shizuko all watched you and I with curious eyes. Grinning, I rubbed the back of my head and looked over at his own team. Kohaku and 2 other students belonging to the popular group all stared at me with small glares. Kawabata Yukio had long black hair pulled into a ponytail. He had a blue headband over his eyes, but somehow, he could still see. His quirk was called 1 Second Flash. It allowed him to see into the future for 1 second, but he had to hold his breath for a minute to activate his power. Takeno Naoki was a blonde-haired girl with pink highlights and fluffy eyelashes. Her quirk, Unmovable, allowed her to plant herself wherever she chose like a tree. Naoki's ability essentially made her into an unmovable object. I can't believe he made it to the second round. Naoki huffed and turned away. Beside her, Yukio nodded and dismissed me. Whatever, he'll lose here. I ignored their snide little comments and nodded at you. Let's hope so. If you lose to me here, you won't have any excuses since you're free to use your quirk this time. +8 SP. The 2 of us eyed one another a bit longer before you nodded and walked off to his team. Good luck, Shimizu-san. I'll see you at the finals. Yeah, you all better run. Himiko called out to Naoki and Yukio as they walked off. Just so you know, I have a red rubber ball with your names on it. Himiko-chan. Don't antagonize them. Hikari squeaked out as she pulled back and irritated Himiko. We don't need a strong team like that targeting us. Let them come. Feeling a tug on my jersey, I turned to see Shizuko looking up at me with curiosity. Shimizu-san, I apologize if this sounds rude, but given that you are quirkless, I suggest we avoid direct attack strategies. Instead, we should focus on guerrilla warfare to prolong our efforts as much as possible. Shizuko pointed to the side of the stadium, where the urban battleground was located. By using that area as our primary battleground, we can utilize our surroundings to help us evade incoming attacks. Impressive. In addition to your high intelligence, you also have a talent for strategy, I said, glancing at the ticking clock above us. We had less than a minute before the game began. But don't worry about me because I don't have a quirk. Just focus on developing a strategy to help us win. +5 SP. Very well. I'll revise our attack strategy to improve our chances of winning. However, there's something about you that confuses me. Despite lacking a meta ability, you seem the most confident among everyone here. How do you do it? Shizuko asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. Where do you find all that confidence? Why am I so confident? I muttered as I leaned down to stare into her eyes with a grin on my face. That answer to that is easy. It's because I'm strong. All right, first years. I hope you are satisfied with your chosen teams. Let's get this party started. Present MIC yelled over the stadium speakers, eliciting a roar of cheers from the audience. One last countdown before the game starts. 3, 2, 1. Begin. 13 roared, prompting everyone below the stadium arena to move. Right then. Himiko, Chino, and Ogasawara. You 3 ready? I said as I watched our competition rush toward where the balls were scattered. Ready. My 3 teammates called out from around me as we stood within the rocky plateau area of the arena. Good. Now, let's follow the plan. I called out, and we all dashed off to the side of the area, behind several jutting boulders. Dashing forward, I found a lone red ball and grabbed it. Shizuko's new plan was straightforward. The dodgeball game would take place across 4 distinct areas, each with its own unique environment. Currently, we are in the rocky plateau area. The other areas included a large, tree-filled section, a space composed of small, isolated buildings, and the largest environment, which featured ruins and debris designed to resemble a devastated battlefield. The plan was for us to move in a counterclockwise circle around all 4 areas. From there, we would use the environments around us to attack our enemy teams from the safety of cover while covering our backs. It was a good plan. If we followed it closely, our odds of making it into the finals without being hit were high. However, for me, this plan was a little on the safe side. But if it helped those on my team, then I'd go along with it. Looking behind me, I saw that Hikari and Shizuko had anxious expressions as their eyes darted all around them in search of anyone. Himiko, on the other hand, looked like she was having the time of her life. "Remember to stick to the plan," I said as I handed the ball in my possession to Himiko. "And if any of you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, get close to me." +5 SP, +5 SP, the two long-haired girls nodded. As we continued moving through the area, the sounds of rubber smacking against flesh rang out in the distance alongside frustrated yells. The game was now well underway. "Ha! Got you!" The four of us turned up to see a student who had the features of a horse jump over a tall boulder. The student then threw the ball in his hand toward a surprised Hikari with all of his strength. Thwack! But before the ball could strike our teammate, Himiko threw her ball with incredible precision and threw the ball off course, shocking the long-faced student. Without wasting another second, I rushed across the field and caught the ball Himiko threw mid-air. Twisting around, I launched the ball and struck the student straight in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him and eliminating him. +8 SP, +5 SP, +5 SP, +5 SP, Seiji. From around us, 3 more students wearing purple jerseys came out from their hiding spots. Out of the 3, only 2 of them had balls in their hands. Hikari-chan. Himiko called out, jolting the girl out of her surprised state. Right. Pulling out her small sketchpad, Hikari quickly drew an octopus. The creature burst into existence, its heavy ink-like features moving around in front of her and Shizuko. From behind the safety of the octopus, Shizuko used her quirk to create 2 new dodgeballs out of 2 rocks. Toga-san. Shimizu-san. With an accuracy one wouldn't expect from the girl, she threw both blue balls toward us. "No way. How is that fair?" One of the horse students' teammates yelled in annoyance as Himiko and I caught our balls. "As long as they only use those balls for defense, I'll allow it." 13 announced loudly, causing our 3 enemies to groan. "Gah! Whatever." A girl with shoulder-length brown hair yelled as she threw a ball right at me with a glare. "This is for Seiji-kun." Grinning, I threw my own ball straight at the dodgeball and knocked it off course right into Himiko's other hand. The both of us rushed forward with speed that surprised everyone around us. As we moved, Himiko threw the ball Shizuko made for her at me to use. Across from us, the 3 students who thought they had the drop on us all began to look fearful as we quickly closed in on them. The boy, who seemed to be perpetually sweating with the last remaining ball, looked back and forth between Himiko and me before focusing on Himiko. But before he could throw his ball at her, I launched the ball in my hands in front of his face, causing him to yelp and throw his ball off course. +5 SP, with a wide smile, Himiko launched her red ball at his face with a satisfying rubber smack. The brown-haired girl looked agitated that another of her teammates was eliminated, but she didn't let that stop her. Rushing in, she tried to grab the rolling red ball that took out her teammate, but she was unprepared for the ball that hit her in the back of her head. What? The girl said in anger and frustration as she watched the bouncing red ball roll behind her. "You're out." Hikari said with a shaky grin as she pumped a fist in the air. After she had created her octopus, Hikari rushed to grab the ball that Himiko had thrown off course from when the horse student tried to hit us with his surprise attack. With 3 out of his 4 teammates gone, the lone student with the purple jersey looked around him as we all slowly closed in on him. In my hands rested a red rubber ball of death. Mercy. The shaking boy asked. "Sorry. All out of mercy." +10 SP. Thwack. General POV. The ongoing match between all 12 teams was quick and intense. All throughout the 4 different areas of the battlefield were students in different colored jerseys throwing red balls at one another. Some students who were physically gifted proved to hold the advantage over everyone else, but ultimately, those who had quirks better suited for maneuvering held the edge over everyone else. This didn't mean that everyone else who lacked either quality was left behind. No, instead of falling prey to the strong, these students had to rely on their quick thinking and creative uses of their quirks to stay in the game, resulting in several fast and exciting matches for the audience. There's 7 teams left, Izuku said as he wrote down information from all the quirks he'd seen used in the dodgeball match. His green eyes watched a heated match between Yu's team against a team made up of Class 1A students. Yeah, this game is almost over. Hitoshi nodded as his eyes looked for one particular team wearing orange jerseys. Sensei and his team need to hold on a bit more, and they'll make it to the finals. Their strategy is odd. It's not one Su-chan would typically come up with. Keiko commented as she watched Sauta and Himiko's team circling around the 4 areas. As they moved, they came across other teams and attacked them using the element of surprise by using the environment around them to their advantage. His style is more straightforward. Izuku and Hitoshi both nodded as they focused their attention on Sauta and his team. The 4 orange jersey-wearing students were currently hiding behind one of the small buildings within the urban area of the stadium. Yeah, you're right. It may be that someone else came up with their current plan, Izuku said with calculating eyes. Still, the plan they're using is an effective one. They're avoiding any head-on battles and staying away from the center of the battleground. If they keep this up, they'll guarantee their spot in the next game. Still, something's bugging me. Mai spoke up as she intently watched Sauta and his team enter another match with a team they sneaked up behind. Her cross-haired eyes zoomed into Sauta's grinning face as he threw a ball into another student's face. Why is Sauta trying so hard? I didn't think he cared about the sports festival. He called it a waste of time. Oh, the reason for that is simple. Jin turned to the 3 teenagers and motioned off to the excited Eri, who was cheering on her 2 elder siblings. It's because Eri-chan said she wanted to see him and Himiko win. Is that it? Yup, that's it. Shimizu Sauta POV, Shimizu-san. Taijima. Staring in the center of the destroyed ruins area of the stadium, Yu's team and my own stood in front of one another with red balls in our grasps. His glowing pink eyes stared into my own as a challenging grin stretched across his face. Behind him, Kohaku, Yukio, and Naoki looked surprised to see that my team and I were still in the game. 2 minutes left. I glanced over at the ticking clock and felt the tense air between everyone. Behind me, Himiko stuck out her tongue while Hikari and Shizuko nervously stood behind me. The 2 short girls' faces were tired and sweaty as they tried to control their breathing. After having fought off 3 other enemy teams, it seemed that both of the girls were now running on fumes. I was hoping I'd run into you in this game, Yu said as he leaned forward, his red dodgeball held tightly within his glowing armored arms. So that's your quirk. Pretty flashy. I nodded and kept a careful eye on my grey-haired classmates' teammates. Kohaku was also seemingly running on fumes, while Naoki and Yukio seemed to be slightly winded. We're at a disadvantage. Before my eyes, Yu's glowing mechanical arms deconstructed around him before reforming around his legs, increasing his height and most likely augmenting his speed. Thank you. Yu smiled before Kohaku stomped her foot, causing a much smaller golem to rise up in front of her. It was half the size of the one she created in our match. Enough chit-chat. We're running out of time. She growled out as she looked at Yu with urgency. Yu nodded and raised his ball toward me. Very well. May the better team win. Fine by me. Whack. Not needing to be told twice, Himiko threw her ball at Naoki's face, but the girl leaned all the way back and avoided the ball. Naoki's quirk was called Unmovable. This ability allowed her to plant her legs anywhere she wanted, and she'd remain rooted to that surface for as long as she wanted. TCH. Himiko sucked her teeth as she jumped back to avoid the ball thrown by her by Yukio, who had his cheeks puffed up while his face began to turn red. He'll be a little tricky. Yukio's quirk was called 1 Second Flash. It gave him the ability to see 1 second into the future as long as he held his breath for over a minute. Ha, take this. Hikari yelled as she drew a tall, lanky Minecraft Enderman, who quickly threw her own ball at Kohaku with a raspy growl. You. What a nasty creature. Kohaku commanded her golem to smack the ball away from her with a loud, rubber smack. Running beside her golem, the orange-haired girl threw her ball right at Shizuko. Despite her fatigue, the awkward girl touched the fallen wall behind her and used her quirk to create an impromptu shield in front of her that deflected the ball away. As everyone fought around us, Yu and I stared at one another carefully. The both of us were seemingly forgotten by our teams. As soon as the clock hit the last minute of the game, we both moved. As I had expected, Yu's creation had indeed increased his speed and maneuverability. We both rushed off to the side and away from our battling teammates and began our fight. Yu moved first and leaped off a collapsed roof. While in midair, he undid one of his creations off his left leg in favor of reforming his earlier armored arm. With a grunt, he launched his ball right at my face with impressive speed. Still, no matter how fast the ball was traveling, my enhanced senses allowed me to track the ball as if it were moving in slow motion. And now, with the bonus addition of a heavenly restricted body, I could effortlessly keep up with my senses. Still, it's best I hold back. I don't want to draw too many eyes to me. Slowly, at least to those watching, I moved myself out of the direction of the ball and leaped after you. The grey-haired boy was momentarily surprised to see me avoid his attack, but a small, excited grin grew on his face. With a twist of my hips, I threw my ball right at his midsection. In an instant, he concentrated his glowing constructs around his feet to create a futuristic pair of rocket shoes. With a burst of pink flames, he was launched back to avoid the dodgeball. "That's some quirk you got," I called out as I rushed after his fallen ball while he grabbed mine. "Remind me again how you're not in the hero course." +8 SP. With quick movements, the two of us rushed in and out of our environment in search of the perfect opportunity to hit one another. Sliding around a dilapidated car, you draped a large lacrosse stick over his arm to better fit a dodgeball. With a heave, he launched the ball right at me. Unfortunately, I was bedridden that day. But after this festival, I have no doubt about my transfer. You watched as I threw my own ball to knock his speeding projectile away, leaving us without any ammo. Our eyes quickly scanned our surroundings, and we each saw a ball close by, close to our positions. However, they were each within a few meters of one another. How confident of you. It sure would be a shame if I eliminated you right here and now, then. I yelled as we each rushed to grab a ball. +10 SP. With the in hand, we each spun to one another and cocked our arms back. But before we could throw our rubber balls of death at each other to determine the winner, a loud buzz echoed through the speakers, "Game over." With 4 teams remaining, the match is now over. 13 announced as the jumbotrons above showed off the last remaining 4 teams. Team Sakura, Team Shino, Team Taijima, and Team Shimizu. The stadium shook as the watching crowds cheered to congratulate all those who would move on to the final round of the sports festival. "I suppose that's it," Yu muttered as he relaxed and deactivated his quirk. He stared down at the ball in his hands with dissatisfaction. If only we would have crossed paths earlier in the game, maybe we dashed thwack. Blinking in confusion, Yu stared at the dodgeball that tapped his chest as it bounced on the ground. Slowly, he looked up to see my outstretched arm and my grinning face. +20 SP, victory for Sauter. That doesn't count.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.